Hey guys, hope you are well. So, welcome to the Anime Fictions 2.0. This is the story about what if Naruto fall in love with Nami. Part 2. If you love this Whatif, do subscribe for more awesome Whatif. Share with your friends and enjoy them. Check out the other videos I have created. Comment down your opinion. Share with your friends. So, without wasting any time, let's jump into the second part. You stupid twerp! Hody roared at the blonde fishman. Clutched by the neck in his right hand, he slammed Naruto against the wall in the deserted hallway of the palace. What is this I hear about you losing to a human? Naruto could only wince when he felt the reed-white shark fishman slam him into the wall again. He opened his mouth to speak, but Ryugu Kingdom's soldier slammed him into the wall again, once, twice, thrice, and even a fourth time. He nicked his tongue on one of his teeth on the fourth time, and out of pure anger he drew back his right foot and kicked Hody in his fat belly. The pure force of the kick caused the great white shark fish man to release the blonde, who proceeded to punch the soldier in the face once, twice, and after the third time the adopted son of Neptune coughed several times before taking in several long breaths. So this is what I get for helping you master water manipulation. Hody growled out in anger. After all I've done for you, lose to a human, and punch me in the face when I ask you a simple question. If I didn't punch you I would have died. Naruto rubbed his tender throat, wincing a bit as he did so. Now to answer your question, yes I fought a human, and yes I lost to him. But in my defense he ate a Logia devil fruit that rendered most of my physical attacks useless, but after dousing him with seawater I didn't anticipate him being physically strong. It was a good fight, and I'm not ashamed that I lost. Hody's white face turned purple out of anger. But while his outward appearance showed him about to explode in rage, inwardly he knew that his control over the boy was slipping. The boy was supposed to be his perfect weapon. Throughout his lessons with the blonde he was planting seeds of hatred for humans, but they haven't bloomed. He needed to do something drastic to get the boy on his side. And he knew exactly how to do it. You should be. Hody barked at him. With that power inside you, you should have been able to wipe that smelly human from existence. Power? What in the world are you talking about? You mean you don't know? Good God, boy, didn't you think there was a reason the royal family adopted a lowly peasant? It was because I protected the queen. Right. Jahahaha. Do you really think that they would reward you for something like that? You foolish idiot, it was because of the power inside you, the fabled power of the Sea King. An immense weight plowed into Naruto's chest. It wasn't one of Hody's punches, it wasn't one of Hody's kicks, no, it was the weight of truth. Dear God, how could he have been so stupid? Why else would Jinbe use his precious time to train him? Why else would the royal family adopt a street boy like him? If it wasn't for whatever the Sea King power was inside him, he would still have been combing the streets for food, or working under Madame Shirley on jobs that helped him stay clean. His blue eyes immediately bled to crimson and his muscles, already toned and wired from years of intense training, thickened and bulged outwards. Naruto gnashed his sharp teeth until they broke and regrew. His thoughts turned to violence as he imagined himself crushing Riboshi's head into Manboshi's and coating his hands with their brain matter and skull fragments. The blonde also imagined tearing Fukaboshi's thick arms from his shoulders and beating him to death with them. His imagination also went wild when he tore Neptune's head off and showed it to Shirahoshi right before he. Immediately thinking of the pink-haired mermaid, Naruto's anger diminished much to Hody's displeasure. Shirahoshi was only 6 years old when he was adopted into the family, had been locked into that tower no thanks to Vanderdecken 9. She was innocent. There were no ifs, ands, or buts, she was the only one who could have been saved in that family. Within his clouded mind at least. I'm sorry, Hody. I need to prepare myself for tomorrow. When Naruto left his presence, Hody Jones grinned at his retreating form. Thanks to his revelation, the blonde was in turmoil. His seeds were planted within him that would soon grow into beautiful flowers of hatred. And once they bloomed, the great white shark fishman would use the power of the Sea King to crush the Neptune family, and form Fishman Island into his own utopia to rise to the surface. And kill every single human once and for all. Sleep eluded Naruto that very night. Hody's words still rang in his ears, the lies that he was fed to him still stung the core of his very being. He recalled the event where he injured the world noble. Well, he couldn't say he recalled it because there was nothing to remember. It was like that portion of his memory was blocked or wiped away. With a sigh of annoyance, the blonde fishman threw the covers off himself and strolled over the open windowsill. His blue eyes looked over the entirety of the Ryugu Kingdom. God, how long had it been since he actually seen the beautiful place? 4 years? 5 years? Honestly, Naruto lost track of how long he had been away. He looked towards the hardshell tower, and saw the place Shirahoshi was forced to call home. He wondered how many times Neptune and the others visited her? Was it once a week? Once a month? Or once a year? Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose to stem the migraine coming up. He was going to drive himself insane thinking about it. Damn it all, I have to calm myself. Naruto whispered tiredly to himself. Her birthday is tomorrow, my test is tomorrow. I need to be focused. I need sleep. Sadly, the sleep he desired never came. The next day, a tired Naruto found himself standing before Suikazan Fuguki and Yumino Irika in one of the bigger classrooms of the Fisherman Karate Dojo. Standing off to the sides were several dozen high-ranking members that went from level 40 all the way up to level 70. Uzumaki Naruto, you stand before us in a one-time chance to get promoted to level 40. Fuguki's authoritative voice rang throughout the room. The pufferfish fisherman's eyes glanced around the room, taking in the surprised and disgusted faces of his fellow martial artists. I am appalled and disgusted that we are even doing this. If not for the fact that you have friends in high places, I would not have even allowed this to happen. There was a minute of silence before the instructor spoke up again. You will be given 3 tests to determine if you succeed or fail. The first one, here and now, will be the trial of will. Fuguki snapped his fingers and 3 members of the crowd stepped forward. I have instructed these 3 to attack you for 3 minutes straight. You are to not retaliate, and if you stay conscious at the end of 3 minutes you will pass. Naruto could only glare at the instructor. So that was his plan. First he would be weakened, and then that would leave him at maybe half strength for the next test. When Fuguki snapped his fingers, the 3 fishmen bolted at his still form to begin the first test. A red-knobbed starfish fishman delivered the first strike. Its tubercles located along his right arm delivered a devastating haymaker to the blonde's throat, causing him to involuntarily clutch it when he felt the damage to his windpipe. The second strikes were delivered to his belly by a pale, black-haired squid fishman by all the 6 arms, and then again by his 2 legs when he fell flat on his hands. The final punch was delivered by a crab fishman who smashed his nose with the back of his right claw. Each strike to his body was agonizing. Whoever those 3 were, they were strong, extremely strong. The crab fishman struck him in the face once again. Naruto heard the familiar crack of cartilage as his nose was broken once again, while the starfish fishman stabbed him right in the spine. Oh, and to add insult to his already enormous amounts of injuries, the squid fishman squirted him right in the face with black ink, blinding him. Cracking an eye open, the blonde saw the smirk coming from Fuguki's face. Damn orange-haired bastard was getting a kick out of this. He was hoping that he would fail. It was due to remembering Hodi's words that kept him from blacking out. Naruto embraced the pain by falling into himself, and making the pain his own. Enough. It wasn't Fuguki who ended the trial, but Irika, who noticed it was long past the 3-minute mark. Once the 3 fishmen ceased their beatdown on the young tiger shark fishman, Irika darted over to check on the damage to his student. It was not even remotely pretty. The exposed parts of Naruto's tan skin was covered in bruises, his right eye was swollen shut, and he had several minor, but still pretty painful cuts that stained parts of his karate gi red. Hang on, Naruto, I'll take you to a doctor. Irika's act of kindness was harshly rejected when Naruto shoved him away. He spat out a mouthful of blood and a few teeth as he looked up at Fuguki in spite, barely holding back his anger at the pufferfish fishman. Bring on the next challenge. He spat out his words in anger. Fuguki only showed the adoptive son of Neptune a sharp, toothy smile. The next test is the trial of skill. What you need to do is demonstrate 5 skills that show you're worthy of passing. If you have any, of course. He gestured towards 5 judges, one of them being Irika himself. They will grade your techniques, giving you a score of 1 through 10 as your total amount. Hope you're up to the challenge, boy. I'd hate to see you fail. Bring it on. But let's take this outside. I'd rather not destroy the dojo. After the entire crowd of fighters left the room, and went to the large courtyard filled with training dummies, the 5 judges stood off to the side, their expert eyes peering at the injured blonde tiger shark fishman as he readied himself. Once again Naruto fell into himself to focus his energy to unleash his techniques perfectly. His eyes snapping open, Naruto snapped both his arms up into an X shape, and then snapped them downwards, yelling, piercing spiral water spear. Using his powerful legs, Naruto jumped upwards. Opening his mouth, he let loose a stream of water, surrounding his entire body with it. Then, to the surprise of his audience, he began rotating his body like a drill, creating a sharp spiraling whirlpool of water around himself before flying downwards at one of the training posts, obliterating it on contact. He then flew upwards above the spectators and brought the spiraling water around his forearms. Immediately after stabilizing his technique, the blonde snapped them downwards, saying, "Water sickles," and unleashed powerful water blades that resembled the curved blades of sickles at the training posts, slicing them into 2 clean pieces. Not satisfied with his devastation, Naruto took a deep breath, and then opening his mouth, a powerful jet of water flew out at the ground, leaving a trail of nothing but devastation that completely destroyed the ground underneath him. After ceasing the water attack, Naruto rotated forward, building up extreme speed, building and momentum until he slammed into the last training post with both of heels screaming, double spiral axe kick. He completely decimated the wooden structure and left a 10-foot crater after he landed. For his finishing move, Naruto clenched his right fist to the point where his knuckles popped. He then started to rotate his shoulder, focusing his energy into his right fist. The remaining water within the dry area flowed towards him until they formed something akin of a tornado around his fist. Without any amount of hesitation, the blonde bolted towards the crowd. Those within his path immediately bolted for cover when the tiger shark fishman punched his right arm forward. His voice filled with anger and excitement, he yelled out his final technique. Whirlpool Breakthrough Fist. The attack hit the coral wall with an intensity of a tidal wave, and smashed through it to the other side. After the technique ended, Naruto looked over towards the judge, but most importantly he looked over at Fuguki, whose smug face was replaced with shock and surprise. How do you like those techniques? Naruto taunted the crowd. That was only 4 techniques, Uzumaki, you fail. Fuguki bellowed in response to the young fishman's taunt. Actually, the third one was the exploding water shock wave technique. Now I would have happily called it out, but as you all saw, I can't exactly talk with water flowing out of my mouth, can I? Naruto pointed out the obvious for his third technique. When he got no verbal response, his only open blue eye focused on the judges. So, what's my score? Or was I too fast for ya? Destructive and powerful, I give them an 8. A seahorse fishman revealed his score. Too flashy, but I see great potential. I give them an 8 as well. A bearded catfish fishman announced his score. Exquisite, devastating. Oh honey, you got the moves. 10 all day. A flamboyant, rainbow trout fishman gave his review with a sing-song voice. 9. A loud manatee fishman gave his review, and nothing more about it. It came down to Irika. Now Naruto had a good score already. But his was probably the most important of all. The bottlenose dolphin fishman stared at his student, scratched the scar going across his nose before smiling. You get a 10. Naruto, along with most of the class, cheered at his accomplishment. To the rookies and intermediates, it looked like the blonde was going to do the impossible. Fuguki only gritted his teeth in anger before raising his arm to silence the crowd. Well, Uzumaki, since you passed this test, I have no choice but to start the final one. Are you ready? Bring it on. Fuguki-sensei. Naruto forced the pufferfish fishman's title out of his throat. That only brought a smirk onto the instructor's face. With a snap of his fingers, the entire courtyard was greeted with the pounding footsteps of a behemoth. And they were soon greeted with the giant form of Skorka, the killer whale fishman. It had been many years since Naruto saw him, but even he realized the changes his old rival went through. Many years ago, Skorka barely reached 8 feet in height. But now he was well past the 15-foot mark. His entire body that was already packed with thick muscles was replaced with even larger and tighter muscles that looked like they could crush coral and bend steel. His looks were uglier than hell. He had several more scars that he proudly showed off, no thanks to him wearing only green Hawaiian-styled shorts. The killer whale fishman gazed at the blonde with his killer green eyes, and snorted when he saw him. Is this a joke? His rough, dangerous voice questioned Fuguki. To reach level 40, I have to beat this whelp? Fine. And for me to get to level 40, I have to fight him? Naruto narrowed his eyes at Skorka before his mouth broke out into a predatory grin. I will happily take this trial. Let the trial of combat begin. You are to not stop until your opponent is unconscious, unable to fight. His face then split into a fierce grin. Or dead. Now fight. Before the pufferfish fishman brought his right arm down, the two opponents bolted towards each other. Skorka let out a fierce war cry when he threw his right arm out to punch the blonde menace. But seeing the attack coming from a mile away, Naruto easily dodged the punch. He then hopped to the left side and punched at the killer whale fishman's ribs. Skorka, however, snapped his left hand towards the area where the attack would have broken several ribs. He caught Naruto's fist with his, and immediately clamped down on it with crushing force. With a loud yell, the larger of the two rotated his left arm above his head, taking the small tiger shark fishman for a ride in the air before he smashed him into the ground once, twice, thrice, and even a fourth time before he dug his heels into the ground and began spinning. Skorka spun for 2 straight minutes, building up momentum and speed before releasing the blonde, and watched as he violently slammed against and broke through the coral wall. Skorka raised his muscular arms and let out a cheer of triumph, like one of those fake wrestlers always did at a sold-out show. How do you like that, Uzumaki? I call that the Titan Devastator. He was only greeted when a powerful jet of water tore through the hole his opponent went through. Seeing the attack before, Skorka easily dodged it, and when he saw the blonde speed through the opening, the killer whale fishman jumped high into the air, then spinning like a top he fell to the arena floor like a megaton bomb, smashing the area he landed into nothing but dust, and sending Naruto into another wall. And that is called the Titan Hammer. Skorka cracked his scarred knuckles and bolted at his opponent once more. He let out another war cry, this time naming off another technique, Titan Fist. He aimed his punch at Naruto's head, but the slippery little eel managed to move at the last second, and instead lodged his entire arm into the coral wall. That was when Naruto struck with vengeance. His fist struck Skorka's torso with the force of what felt like a train. There was no mercy from the beaten and battered blonde as he continued to punch the killer whale fishman until he heard the telltale break of bones. Skorka roared out in pain, but had enough sense to deal a devastating strike to his opponent's side, but for once Naruto didn't go flying. Instead he rotated his shoulder, focusing his energy into his right fist. Like before, whatever remaining water flowed towards him until it formed the familiar water tornado around his fist. Naruto punched his right arm forward shouting, "Whirlpool breakthrough fist." His technique hit Skorka square in the ribs, digging and tearing his flesh asunder. The force of the impact was strong enough to actually lift the ridiculously muscled whale shark fishman off the ground, and sent his clear across the room, causing him to crash through the coral walls for the first time in his entire life. Spitting to the side, Naruto turned to face an extremely displeased Fuguki. The student of Jinbe wasn't stupid. He knew that Fuguki didn't remotely like him since he kept coming in and out of the dojo, received special training from Jinbe, and was considered spoiled. Well, Naruto was far from being spoiled. He worked himself to the bone and earned his skills through blood, sweat, and tears. Jinbe, while a good teacher, was far too busy with his job as a member of the Shichibukai and only helped him refine his stances, and built up his strength with various rigorous and near-torturous exercises. His secret teacher, Hody Jones, he gave him much-needed help with his water manipulations, but that was it. Snapping out of his thought, he gave the orange-haired fishman his infamous shark smile. "I believe I have won." Skorka's bellowing war cry broke the illusion of his well-earned win as the gigantic fishman burst from the walls. The entire right side of his torso was torn and shredded, showing destroyed muscle, and pieces of flesh handing for the damaged area. But Skorka ignored the crippling pain, he ignored the blood flowing down into a puddle. His eyes were restricted, using nothing but unholy rage to keep himself standing. He used every ounce of willpower to rush his opponent, leaving behind a devastating trail of destruction behind him. Naruto didn't hesitate to meet the mad fisherman head-on. He threw a punch in his already devastated right side, but to his horror Skorka took the blow, and instead grabbed him by the throat with his meaty hands. The young tiger shark fisherman felt the restriction of his windpipe. He tried squeezing the pressure points on his opponent's wrists. He kicked him in the face, the chest, his wounded area. It all proved to be futile. Skorka gave his suffocating opponent a smile. After long last, the one who made him suffer such indignity of defeat was going to die. Oh God, he felt so good that he didn't hear Irika screaming at Fuguki to end the fight. Good fight. But it was futile from the start. Uzumaki, don't worry though, I'll make sure to wish Shirahoshi a happy birthday, rot in hell my rival. If it wasn't for the mention of his dear sibling, and his bold claim of their pathetic rivalry, Naruto would have lost his life. But just looking into Skorka's killer green eyes, the tiger shark felt the primal urge to utterly destroy him. Now that he knew what the urge was, he embraced it. He allowed his rage to take him over, just so he could wipe the smile off Skorka's face. It was then he felt the adrenaline pumping through his veins, his muscles tightening and expanding, and the world in front of him becoming nothing but crimson. Naruto's hands once again gripped the pressure points on his opponent's wrists. This time he got the desired effect he was going for. Skorka screamed in agony when he felt the tiger shark's fingernails tore through his wrists like they were butter, and when the blonde kicked him in the face, he reeled back in pain as blood freely fell from his nose. Naruto kicked him in the face again, and again, bruising, breaking, and tearing his face up until he let go. Once the student of Jinbe landed feet first on the floor, he lashed out with a double palm thrust into his stomach, sending him 20 feet away. "You think you're tough shit, don't you, Skorka? Well, guess what, you're nothing more than an insect compared to my new rival. Yeah, he may be a human as you all have heard, but he is the only person I have ever lost to, and I promised him that I would never lose again until we had our rematch." He looked down at the shark tooth hanging around his neck, and slightly smiled in remembrance. Naruto's head then snapped up, glaring at the killer whale fishman. "And don't you dare mention Shirahoshi's name. You have no right." "Yahahaha. What are you gonna do about it, Uzumaki? I've seen all your attacks, you're greatly wounded. You never had a chance at beating me." Skorka laughed. "Who said those were my only moves, asshole?" The blonde spat out some blood and turned his head to see Fuguki almost red in the face. So that the plan of this test, he was to be weakened, have his best moves shown, and finally defeated or killed by the brute of a fighter. "I still have a trump card left. Please, your bluffs have no meaning here. You're nothing but an ant compared to me." Skorka let out his biggest war cry yet, and charged at the blonde one last time with the intention of destroying him with his titan fist. Naruto only opened his mouth wide open, and used his water manipulation to draw whatever was left in him to form his ultimate technique. He then jumped forward and rotated his entire body, forming a gigantic whirlpool around his entire body. As a result, the tip of the water spiral became an extension of his teeth that met Skorka's titan fist head-on. The result of the clash was something that no one expected. Skorka was completely engulfed by Naruto's technique, and the killer whale fishman's screams of pain nearly deafened them. They looked on with horror that the water turned into a fine red mist before Skorka was violently ejected from it, and crashed straight into an unprepared Fuguki, sending them both into the last intact coral wall. When Irika and several of the other witnesses looked upon the results of the technique, those with weak stomachs lost their lunch. Skorka's right arm was gone, completely gone. All that was left of it was bits of bone protruding from his shoulder, floppy pieces of skin, and flaps of muscle. His left arm wasn't in the best condition either. Most of the skin on his forearm was completely gone, and the exposed muscle could only resemble hamburger meat. Immediately the several people tore the tops of their karate gis off to stem the bleeding. Several more bolted from the dojo to retrieve a doctor. Or dozens of doctors. And since Fuguki was out of commission for the time being, it was left to Irika, being the second in command of the dojo, to give the decision if Naruto passed the test or not. It was a moot point though, since the rules stated the winner would be determined if the opponent could not continue, was knocked out, or died. But before he could even bestow Naruto the rank of level 40, held by what he saw the teen deserved a few levels above 40, he had one question to ask. Naruto, what kind of attack was that? That, Irika-sensei, was my Shark King's water jaw spiral. To sum it up, it's basically an attack where I combine my water manipulation with my teeth, and tear my opponent to pieces. Naruto spat to the side once again, revealing a broken tooth, blood, and some flesh on the floor. Naruto, if he lives after this, there is no way he can ever practice fishman karate ever again. I don't care. Those 3 words struck Irika like one of Jinbe's punches. He took the fight way too far. Unlike him, I didn't try to kill him throughout the entire match, and when he couldn't finish the sentence unless his anger flared up again. Instead, he looked at the bottlenose dolphin fishman, his blue eyes slowly bleeding into crimson. I just couldn't lose, especially when it's Shirahoshi's birthday today. Irika could only regard the blonde with a mixture of surprise and a trace of sadness. He remembered the day Queen Otoheim was assassinated, and her only daughter had to be locked away in order to keep her safe from a man. He couldn't even imagine how hard it was on the king, let alone his children. They all put on a brave face, but not enough time had passed to heal the wounds they still suffered. After staring at his student, the bottlenose dolphin reached into his karate gi and pulled out a patch that had the number 40 stamped on it. After he handed it to the teen, he said to him, "If you're going to see her, please groom yourself a little. I doubt she would want to see her brother in this kind of condition." If Naruto could see himself, he would have seen that he held bruises, cuts, and blood on his exposed skin. His karate gi, what used to be pure white, was torn, wet, and stained with blood that was and wasn't his own. When he turned to leave, the blonde only nodded in thanks to his favorite instructor. 1 hour later, Naruto found that he was good as he could get after a fight that nearly killed him. The royal doctors patched him up real good. His various cuts were either stitched up or completely wrapped in gauze to stem the bleeding. His outfit consisted of a black turtleneck to cover the gigantic bruises on his neck and showed off the physique that he worked hard to gain, simple white baggy cargo pants that had the orange-colored star logo for the criminal brand on one of the side pockets, and a pair of black sandals. He finally reached the entrance of the hardshell tower, and met up with the 2 fishmen that forced him to go through all that crap just to see his sister. Almost immediately, the rude one, a viperfish fishman, stopped his advancement with a toothy sneer. "Brat, we told you never to return." The viperfish sneered. "Actually, your buddy said once I reached level 40 I could see her." Placing his bandaged right hand into his pocket, he showed the fishman his official level 40 patch. "And as you can see, I'm level 40, now let me in." "That's a fake. There is no way a runt like you could have gotten to that level at your age." The viperfish barked at him. "It looks real to me." The other guard, a dragonfish merman, replied after he looked at the patch. "It's a fake." Grabbing Naruto's left arm, the viperfish fishman was about to use force to remove the blonde annoyance. Unfortunately for him, Naruto was not even remotely in the mood to deal with him. He was tired, he was still hurt, and he still had a great amount of anger in him. The viperfish soon found his right hand broken, the wind knocked out of him, and his jaw broken before blissful unconsciousness sent him off to La La Land. "You have a problem with me going in?" Naruto threatened the remaining guard after he cracked his knuckles. "No!" the dragonfish fishman squeaked out. Please go right on it." Dropping his trident, he brought both his hands to the steel doors and opened them, albeit with great difficulty. Once they were open enough to have Naruto walk on through, but before the blonde could even take a step, both of them saw something extremely shiny from the distance. The dragonfish fishman screamed in horror. "It's one of Vanderdecken's axes. Damn it, boy, you just had to make us open the doors." He would have tried to shut the doors, if not for Naruto's interference by grabbing his shoulder and shaking his head. "What, you think you can stop it? Boy, the last guard who tried to stop it was sliced in half. What makes you think you can do any better?" Giving the guard his infamous shark-like grin, Naruto leaped towards the descending weapon. When he drew closer to it, he noticed that it was a pretty large double-headed axe with a red rose design on the middle of the connecting axe heads. And with one punch of his right arm, Naruto hit the blade, and the entire axe shattered to pieces. With his handy word done, the blonde landed on the ground, flashing the guard a superior look. "What the? How? The last guy died doing that." "It's quite simple," Naruto replied once he reached the doors. He was weak. And with that said, he shut the doors behind him with ease. After slamming the doors shut, Naruto was greeted by darkness. His right eyebrow twitched in annoyance. His adoptive sister spent her time in the dark. Oh, he was going to either beat or prank the crap out of the idiot who thought it was a good idea to have Shirahoshi in the dark, especially when she was scared of it. Who's there?" a soft, sleepy female voice said in the darkness. A bright light automatically turned on from a ginormous fancy hanging lamp, brightening the room along with several other ones along the walls. Naruto's eyes were greeted with the sight of a pink and golden room. But after his eyes recovered from the color rape, they steeled of Shirahoshi. Good God, the years had been good to her. She was bigger, given the type of mermaid she was. Her strawberry blonde hair was longer, just reaching past her shoulder blades, and other than a golden halter top covered in pearls, the one thing that was the same about her were her sparkling blue eyes. "Oni-chan?" Her eyes widened in recognition, and then tears slowly made their way to her eyes. Shirahoshi couldn't believe that after 6 long years, her adoptive brother finally visited her. She saw that he had changed. He was taller, more filled out than the scrawny boy she remembered, more mature. "Naruto Oni-chan, is it really you?" "Of course it is, Shira-chan. Happy birthday," Naruto said with the little pet name he gave her all those years ago. Shirahoshi cried out in happiness. Her giant, but soft hands wrapped around his entire body and pressed him against her flat chest. And Naruto, he unfortunately couldn't do jack squat about it, except let her enjoy it. Not that he would deny her the right to hug her older brother on her birthday. "Naruto Oni-chan, I thought I would never see you again. Why didn't you come to see me until now?" The mermaid princess cried out with a ridiculous amount of tears falling from her eyes. "If you stop crushing me, I'll happily tell you," the blonde gasped out when he felt his bones cracking. Her eyes blinking in surprise, Shirahoshi gently pulled her adoptive brother from her chest. Folding her palms upwards, she patiently waited for the explanation he had, and when Naruto was about to tell her why it took him so long to see her, when one of the iron-sealed windows started shaking a total of 5 times. The mermaid princess squealed in glee after the 5th knock. Tipping one hand to force Naruto to tumble into the only one keeping him in the air, she used her other one to unlatch a lock from the side in order to quickly open it. And to Naruto's surprise, a gigantic megalodon black shark, with a white underbelly. Oddly enough, he was wearing a red shirt with the Criminal Fashion Line logo on the front of it, and one of those bubble rings around his waist in order for him to float into the room. "Shira-chan. What the hell heck is that?" Naruto caught himself in mid-swear. "Oni-chan, this is Megalo. Father assigned him to protect and keep me company. Isn't he cute?" She giggled as the gigantic creature nuzzled against her cheek. "Cute? It's a freaking man-eater. An affectionate man-eater." Naruto held in the urge to grimace when the shark licked him, leaving a trail of slime along the front half his body. Gross. That's what he was thinking, but he dully responded. "Yeah, he's real cute." Shirahoshi giggled in response, and the gigantic shark nuzzled in her lap like a cat of all things. "So, Oni-chan, you were about to tell me why it took you so long to see me. It's a one-of-a-kind tale. I only hope it won't bore you," Naruto said before telling her of his adventures with Jinbe, his training, saving a princess from a foreign land, and the watered-down version of his fight with Ace. "Why, you got beat up?" The mermaid princess teared up when she heard that he lost the fight. "Only a little." Naruto scratched the back of his head. "It wasn't the best thing that could have happened to me, but I got a new rival out of that encounter. I don't like the thought of you fighting." "Shira-chan, I'm sorry you feel that way. But like your brothers, I swore to protect you from that man. And until that day comes, I'll keep getting stronger until I know that you're safe once and for all." "Promise?" the mermaid asked. "The promise of a lifetime, I swear." Naruto smiled at her, and held out his right pinky finger to show his promise. And when Shirahoshi smiled back, she placed her larger pinky finger against his to seal the deal. It would be a few days after his promotion, and tearful reunion with Shirahoshi, Naruto was ambushed by Hody once again. Oddly, he didn't pin him against the wall and scream at him in anger, but instead he gave the blonde a wide smile and patted him on the shoulder. Word in the palace is that you're level 40. Congratulations, boy. Thank you, Hody, Naruto said to his secret teacher. But I heard that you had a little trouble. The great white shark fishman grinned. It would have gone easier, but Fuguki decided to be a dick by having the crap beaten out of me, several of my techniques being shown off to tire me out, and then sizing his lapdog on my weakened form to finish me off. The deadpan expression did not leave his face for a second when he explained that bullshit test. Jahahaha. I didn't know what you did to piss old Fuguki off, but he was clearly out for your blood. Be careful, brat, he's not one to let old grudges go. I'm pretty sure I broke his spine when I sent Skorka torpedoing into him with my last attack. Nah, it'll take more than that to bring that stubborn pufferfish down. You're strong, boy, but he runs the dojo for a reason, Hody said, giving a rare compliment towards someone that clearly wasn't himself. And because of that, and your accomplishment, I'm taking you to see my friends. Hody has friends? As in plural. This ain't gonna end well, Naruto thought to himself. An hour later, Naruto's high expectations for Hody's so-called friends plummeted when they arrived in the Fishman district. Honestly, he was hoping that he would never had to set foot in that crime-ridden cesspool he used to call home ever again, but Hody hadn't steered him wrong yet. At least he never lied to him. After walking a few miles into the place, and past his old home, occupied by some drunken octopus mermen, did they finally arrive at their destination. It was a big, but shabby-looking house that held 4 vicious-looking fishmen that Hody introduced by name. He introduced was Ikaros Much, a giant squid fishman. He was extremely tall, towering over every other member of his crew, and possessed 8 arms. Each pair of arms seemed to have a corresponding pair of pectorals, as 8 of them were visible on his chest. He had a long beard complete with a mustache, white skin, and a bulbous nose. On both his topmost forearms and on his belly he had dark red swirl-like tattoos, and on his right shoulder was a dark red tattoo that had the Sun Pirate's sunny rim, with a crossed-out decapitated person within it. He wore a round golden-colored helmet with orange goggles, with a white stripe on top of it, and a large loop earring on each ear. His clothing consisted of only a pair of orange shorts with suspender-like belts reaching from his shoulders and waist. Each of his arms had a bolted wristband and holding a long spear with a red tassel right below the head. The second was Dosen, a large blue-skinned hammerhead fishman, being only shorter than Ikaros. Being a hammerhead shark fishman, he had a head shaped like a hammer, with his yellow eyes on the edges and the top of his head being darker than the rest of his body, and long, wavy, light pink hair reaching down his neck. His chest is wide and his arms very large, with extremely prominent, round forearms, his hands and thin legs being quite small in comparison. Protruding from his shirt was a dorsal fin he had on top of his back, and as a fishman, he had gills on his large neck. On his left arm is tattooed his crew's Jolly Roger. Dosen's outfit consisted of an unbuttoned, dark green short-sleeved shirt with many tea-like motifs on it, simple light pink pants and sandals, and a large buckled belt hanging on his chest from his left shoulder. In his right hand was a large hammer with a very long and gnarled handle and a massive, dark head with the edges curved downwards. The third was Zio, a Japanese wabigong fishman. He was a tall and thin fishman with a strange body, covered in wavy light blue and indigo stripes, and 02 tattooed on his chest. Tentacle-like whiskers hung from his face, and unlike the other fishmen Naruto had ever seen in his entire life, Zio didn't seem to have ears or a nose, nor did he have a visible mouth. He sported a dorsal fin, and gills on his long neck. His legs were covered by what appeared to be some sort of long inducement, with a pattern identical to his body and the same tattoo both Dosen and Ikaros had in correspondence of his right knee. Around his waist is a belt with a round buckle, and his feet seemed to be covered by black boots. The fourth and final member was Daruma, a red-skinned and extremely small cookie-cutter shark fishman. He had circular orange eyes, a flat nose and sharp teeth, yet his arms are notably larger than his hands. On his right arm was the very same tattoo the others wore. He sported distinctive headgear composed of a hat similar to an aviator's, with 2 massive protrusions on both sides of his head, pointing upwards, and decorated on the front, paired with a plumed crest on top of it. He also wore a dark green, sleeveless and zipper-less open jacket with a white fur collar and a pair of light blue Bermuda shorts. This is the brat that tore his opponent's arm to shreds? Faye, doesn't seem like much. Zio scoffed at the notion that a puny kid like Naruto could do something like that. Dosen. He looks like someone I could knock over with my hammer. The ever-hyperactive docent exclaimed. I just met you guys, and already I hate all of you. Naruto deadpanned, much to Hoti's delight. Well, I don't like you either. Daruma gnashed his sharp, pointy teeth at the blonde. Just looking at you makes me want to gnaw on your bones. Don't make me set you on fire, you little pipsqueak. Naruto threatened the smallest fishman out of the bunch. Ikaros much only screamed in fear and surprise at the word fire, and curled himself backwards, ironically looking like a dried squid. This caused both Hoti and Zio to laugh at his pyrophobia. Why did you bring me here, Hoti? What is your reason to bring me to this cesspool again? The blonde narrowed his eyes. It's quite simple, kid, I want you to join my crew. Hoti responded with a gleeful smile. Say what now? You heard the captain, boy. He wants you to join us in our holy quest to right the wrongs the kingdom did to its citizens. Zio said to the teenager. Wrongs? What is going on in your head? King Neptune has done right for entire kingdom. The back of Naruto's conscience, however, said differently. Hasn't he? What do you think? Hoti growled at him. Neptune used to be a warrior we all looked up to, but once he married Otoheim he went soft on us. See the Fishman district? The great white shark swept his right arm outward, showing him the broken down, garbage-strewed, violent district that they all came to know growing up. We are all orphans like you, Naruto. Our parents were either captured by pirates and sold into slavery, or died. Neptune promised us that we would be well cared for, but look at us. Hoti raged at his secret student. Like you, we were forced to fight in the pits, committed crimes just to not become a corpse in the gutter, and the best life we got was to become soldiers for his army. Well, I'll tell this much, I'm not being a soldier for him any longer. Ripping the helmet from his head, Hoti threw it against one of the damaged buildings, leveling it. Instead, I'm becoming the leader of the new Fishman Pirates. I'm taking up Fisher Tiger's dream of protecting our home through extreme means, and showing Neptune that his wife's vision was wrong. But we cannot do it alone. Naruto, I need you to be by my side. With the power of the Sea King inside you, we will be unbeatable. No longer will children have to cry over the loss of their parents. No longer will we have to listen to Neptune's lies. We will become brothers in arms for a common goal that we have desired for years. But this can only happen if you join us. Hoti's speech struck a deep chord within Naruto's entire being. It was because of the humans that all of them suffered from their greed. What could have become of them all if that didn't happen? The blonde certainly didn't know, and Neptune. His wife was murdered by the humans for simply trying to coexist. Why didn't he seek revenge? Didn't he love her enough? Didn't he care that his children were now without a mother? Didn't he give a damn that Shirahoshi couldn't stop crying for days because of it? That was when he knew that Hoti was right. With his power they could change things. They could stop their species from becoming playthings for the humans. Hell, when they gained enough strength they could destroy the Tenryubito. You're right, I cannot in good conscience let the humans get away with their crimes. Or the royal family continue their incompetence. I'll join you, Hoti, Naruto said to his new captain. Unbeknownst to him, Naruto fell right into Hoti's trap. With a simple speech, and several lies, he brought the teenager over to his side. With a cruel grin widening on his face, Hoti couldn't wait until the seeds of hatred bloomed within the blonde. 2 years later, my ministers, I must confide something with the both of you. Neptune confessed to his most prized advisors while he sat on a gigantic back whale with a crown on its head and a bubble ring around its waist in order for it to float. The minister of the right could only raise an eyebrow. He was a muscular seahorse merman, having ridges along his back and the sides of his face that protruded underneath his trimmed white beard, as well as a curly orange tail like a seahorse rather than a standard merman's fishtail. His mouth also protruded forward like a seahorse's. His attire consisted of a jacket with 2 circles and a band on each sleeve. His jacket's sleeves are very large on the end. He held 2 weapons on his person, one being a katana on his left hip and a trishula-like trident gripped in his left hand. The minister of the left, a short, peach-skinned rotund catfish merman with light blonde waist-length hair that included a long beard and, like a catfish, 2 large whiskers for a mustache. He wore a royal purple robe and an oversized top hat. The merman adjusted the monocle on his left eye and shifted his wooden cane that had a horn design on the top parts to adjust his weight. What is the problem distressing you, my king? He asked. It's Naruto. Oh yes, your adoptive son, the minister for the right said. Last I heard he reached level 60 in the dojo, and I heard that those of the lower levels and even those of the higher ones highly respect him. Quite the feat for one his age, isn't it? Yes, I am proud of him for that. But for a while now I've noticed that he has been very cold towards everyone. He's no longer making friends, and he's been pretending his family doesn't exist. Instead, he spends every waking second working to improve his skills. Or visiting Shirahoshi, the only person he even smiles at. And he is showing clear aggression towards humanity. I'm truly lost on what to do about him. Your Majesty, Naruto can't be that bad. I know that he's been training himself to the bone, but he doesn't seem that different to me," the Minister of the Right said. "You don't understand. He's been that way since he became level 40 in the dojo. I don't know what happened, but he's changed. He's going down the dark path my wife tried to prevent." Neptune pinched the bridge of his nose to stem the headache coming on. "Your Majesty, your fears are just. But Naruto is a responsible lad. I'm positive that he's not doing anything that would shame our beloved late queen," the Minister of the Left assured the stressed-out king. Unfortunately for Neptune's stress levels would spike with a messenger's sudden arrival with a large package in hand. "Pardon me, Your Majesty. But I just received this package from Jinbe, and it's addressed to your adoptive son. Is he available?" Neptune sighed tiredly as he slumped further into his whale. A sudden package for his adoptive son was not something he needed right now. "Fear not, Your Highness, I will fetch young Naruto. Please relax yourself." The Minister of the Right baited his king before departing from the room. For the minister, it took him over 2 hours to find the blonde. He wasn't in the palace, the dojo, or even in Madame Shirley's cafe. Though she seemed to be oddly tight-lipped about the teen, it had to have been one of her predictions, and probably a scary one at that. It wasn't until he found himself in the Fishman district, and the seahorse merman couldn't hide his disgust. He had heard the rumors of how horrible the place was, but dear God, the rumors didn't do the place justice. He passed by several rundown houses, unconscious or dead bodies. He could have sworn he saw a sleazy-looking merman selling something illegal to a very skinny fishman. It wasn't until he passed the famous ship called Noah that he heard cheering and the sounds of fists pounding against flesh. It couldn't be. The Minister of the Right whispered to himself. He parted past several eager and cheering fishmen outside of a large building. He held in a grimace when he saw that it was full of smelly and dirty patrons sitting at tables enjoying bottles of booze as they watched the fight in front of them. Swallowing the bile rising in his throat, the minister witnessed the finishing move of the two combatants inside the steel cage. Whirlpool breakthrough fist. The familiar water tornado encasing Naruto's bandaged right fist slammed into the torso of a bulky Goliath tigerfish fishman, sending him through the steel, blood-stained cage, the arena, into several patrons and into the wall, where he was knocked unconscious. The crowd cheered in glee at the victory, while others groaned in defeat as they tore up the tickets in their hands. While Naruto, the victor of the match, calmly walked out of the hole and marched over the bar of the joint. He collected his winnings from a pudgy merman, slapped a single belly bill onto the counter in front of him, reached behind the counter to produce a fairly large green bottle, bit the cork off, spat it out, and took a big swing of the alcohol within it before collecting his vest and walking out the swinging doors. "Naruto! Naruto, wait!" the minister hollered as he followed the adoptive son of Neptune out the door. "Naruto, please wait!" he yelled at the top of his lungs. When his screaming got the teenager's attention, he chucked the empty bottle against the wall of a shack and turned to face the minister. Naruto grew a lot in the last 2 years under the combined training of the new Fishman pirates and the instructors of the Fishman dojo. He grew to the height of 5'11", a small height for an average fishman, but he made it up by having a muscular body. It honestly surprised how well defined the teenager was. If he could compare him to anything, it would be the marble statues within the palace. Attire-wise, he wore a black vest that comfortably had a slit in the back for his tiger-striped dorsal fin and open to show off his pecs, abs, and that shark-tooth necklace he always wore. Simple white baggy cargo pants that had the orange-colored star logo for the criminal brand on the right side pocket, and a pair of black open-toed sandals. There was a black belt with a silver belt buckle that depicted an angry shark on it that diagonally hung at his right hip with a white pouch hanging from the back of it. Naruto's blue eyes stared at the minister with disinterest, and swiped his bandaged right hand through his spiky blonde hair, revealing a tattoo on the underside of his tanned right forearm. It showed a detailed dagger piercing through a pure white human skull. "What is it you want, Minister of the Right?" he questioned the seahorse merman. Gulping down the lump in his throat, the merman told him why he came to fetch him. "You have been summoned by your father due to a package arriving from Sir Jinbe." "Master Jinbe? It haven't heard from him in 2 years. What does he want with me?" The blonde questioned him with a frown at the mention of his other teacher. "He sent you some sort of package. It looked important, so I came to find you." "Did you open it?" "Of course not." The minister looked offended at the accusation. "It has not been opened or tampered with in any way. Before I left, I heard King Neptune order the servant to take it to your room. That's all I know." "Fine. I'll go take a look at it since it's so important." Once the pair arrived at the palace, Naruto immediately headed towards his room. It was there he first reached into his desk to retrieve some training tape to cover up the tattoo Hody persuaded him to get as a reminder of their bond, to remember the promise he made regarding his loyalty to the crew. It wasn't that he wasn't proud of the tattoo, but it was because he was going to visit Shirahoshi today, and he didn't want her to know that he had it. Then spotting the package on his bed, he tore it open to reveal 2 eternal poses and a letter. Raising a blonde eyebrow, he read it over, and frowned with every word. Naruto, first of all I would like to congratulate you on your most recent promotion. You're becoming the man I hoped you would be. This is why I am hesitant to ask you of this task. Naruto, do you remember the stories I told you of the fishermen pirates? The blonde raised an eyebrow at the odd question. Of course he remembered the stories of that legendary crew, especially the actions and death of Fisher Tiger. He also remembered several notable crew members like Aladdin, Jinbe himself, and Arlong, the older brother of Madame Shirley. After Fisher Tiger's death, one of the crew members tried to exact vengeance of the village that sold him out. He was soon captured, and released several years later. I knew what he was capable of. I knew what he would become, a monster if I let him run loose, but I let him go instead of dealing with him. And now I've come to regret my decision once learning that he took over an entire village, and bribing a marine captain to keep everything hush-hush. Now I cannot do anything despite my position as one of the Shichibukai regarding him without proper evidence other than the words of an intoxicated marine officer. Naruto, I ask of you to take care of him in my stead. I won't force you do it, but these 2 eternal poses will guide you there and ho. Naruto crumpled the rest of the letter and tossed it away. His eyes burned in fury at the request the Knight of the Sea asked of him. He left without a word for 2 years, no letter, no all forma den mushi. Nothing. And now that he finally heard from him, it was a request begging him to take care of his problem. How pathetic! Especially when Arlong was the one to teach Captain Hody the truth of humanity. He stopped his mind ranting for several seconds though to calmly, rationally think. One part of him, the primal part, was raging at the outrageous demand, but his rational side was screaming at him to do the right thing. Arlong didn't have the best reputation, even in the violent fisherman district. He was known for having a violent temper, and killing anyone who annoyed him. So with him taking over a human village, how many innocent men, women, and children did he kill? Damn it, damn my bleeding heart. Naruto growled at himself. Scooping the eternal poses into his right hand, he placed them into the white pouch secured at the back of his belt. All right, Jinbe, you win. I'll clean up the mess you made. But don't expect me to do it for you. I'm only doing it to ease my own conscience. After retrieving his gigantic axe from the blacksmith's, and paying the man for some minor repair work to it, along with him adding a heavy ball and chain at the loop of the anchor, he went to see Shirahoshi like he planned. After bypassing the guards and leaving his axe at the entrance of the weapon-ridden tower, Naruto was immediately greeted with a hug by the mermaid princess, and pressed against her budding bosoms. Naruto Oniai-chan. You came back. Oh, I never thought I would see you again. Shirahoshi cried out in happiness. It was the ritual for these two. Naruto visited her as much as he could. It was usually 2 times a week, but if it was longer than a week she got all clingy. Not that he minded it, of course. She gave the greatest hugs. Gah! Stupid hormones. That's not the type of mindset he needed right now. Shira-chan, of course I would see you again, I always do, don't I? Naruto gave her his infamous shark smile. I'm sorry, Oniai-chan, but I got a feeling that I won't see you for a while. And once again tears fell down the eyes of the highly emotional mermaid at the mere thought of not seeing her favorite brother again. I don't know what I would do without you. Damn it, and it didn't help that Megalo was nuzzling the 2 of them like a cat while she hugged him with near bone-crushing force. Carefully placing his hands where he would not accidentally grope her, Naruto pushed himself away and spoke over her loud crying. Shira-chan, I keep telling you that I will always come to see you. I made that promise 2 years ago, and I'm never one to break a promise, remember? That seemed to prick the pinkette right up. Wiping her tears away, she nodded in response. If there was one thing about Naruto, it was that he always kept his promises, and only something beyond his control could only force him to break it. Now Shira-chan, I need to tell you that I'm going to be gone for a little while. Master Jinbe has asked me to do something of vital importance for him. When he saw her about to tear up, he quickly hopped into her outstretched hands and jumped up and down, making himself look like an idiot, but preventing her from crying again. I won't be gone long, 2 weeks at most, I swear. You promise? I promise, Shira-chan. I will return to see you. After giving her one last hug, well, what they both considered a hug from him at least, Naruto departed from Shirahoshi's room with the both of them smiling. It was a shame that they wouldn't see each other for a very long time. After leaving the hard-shell tower, Naruto was about to leave the castle entirely before a regal voice caused him to stop in his tracks. With an eyebrow raised, the blonde turned around to see Fukaboshi for the first time in years. He had grown larger in both height and in muscle, and his blue hair went down to his waist. Naruto, do not leave the palace, the elder brother said to his adoptive sibling. Sorry, big bro, but I have a mission to do for Master Jinbe. And if I want to make my 2-week deadline, I would like to leave now. Naruto rudely replied to the shark merman. But before his hand could even press against the wood, he was restrained by both Manboshi and Ruboshi when they both clutched their hands on his arms. Oh, what is this 3 against 1? That certainly isn't royal behavior. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but father wishes to speak with you. Ruboshi apologized. Neptune can bite my dorsal fin. Now let go before I have to hurt you. The blonde tiger shark warned them. Naruto-kun, please don't make this any more difficult than it already is. Manboshi begged his adoptive little brother. I warned you. Naruto brought his opposing palms towards the stomachs of the 2 mermen, forced 2 droplets of water into his palms, and shot of the devastating water bullets with enough kinetic force to dislodge the 2 brothers from his arms, and violently slammed them into the palace walls. After he was free, Naruto bolted towards Fukaboshi, who was ready for the attack. The shark merman's heels of his palms pressed together. The first prince drew in the moisture from the air, then he shouted. Ultramarine! Fukaboshi hurled the great amount of water forward in mighty, extremely large torrents towards his adoptive brother. Unfortunately for the first son of Neptune, Naruto used his own water manipulation to bring the water into his fists. Letting out a loud yell of defiance, he formed the water into the heads of megalodon sharks, devouring twin shark fist. He bellowed, and with precise control the mouths on the heads opened wide, and without mercy he literally tore into Fukaboshi's skin, tearing the flesh on his arms and barrel chest wide open, forcing the first prince to scream out in pain until the technique ended as soon as it started. As the water dropped to the floor, he was hit with a wicked right hook that broke his jaw. When the son of Neptune fell flat on the floor, he painfully looked up at his adoptive little brother, and winced when he scowled down at him. Naruto. How? Why? I hate it when I'm interrupted, Fukaboshi. You would have known that if you were around more. That's the why. As for the how. Well, it's simple, big brother, I'm simply stronger than you. He knelt down, glaring at his torn, bleeding form. Also know this, I spared you. That technique I created was made to tear my opponent to pieces. It was only due to Shirachan that you breathe at this moment. Now remember that before you try anything like that ever again. With his piece said, Naruto yelled for the servants to get the doctors before opening, and slamming the doors with a loud slam. Leaving a teary-eyed Fukaboshi to reflect on his failure to protect his younger brother for falling down the wrong path his mother warned him about. After leaving the palace, and the entire kingdom itself, Naruto found himself at the entrance to Fishman Island. He was hoping for a quiet send-off, but to his surprise Hody was at the gate waiting for him. Gone was the royal armor his captain used to wear, and instead he sported a pink newsboy cap, with a little trident represented on the left side, bearing a resemblance to the red trident he had clutched in his right hand, and a massive scarf seemingly made from a dog-like animal around his neck, with the animal's head hanging on the left side of his chest. He wore a red open shirt with short sleeves, a wide collar and dark red spots on the lower part that exposed his fat belly, which revealed a scar along the lower part of his belly, and the Jolly Roger on the right side of it. He also wore short blue trousers with a similar pattern but with light blue spots, a pink sash tied around the waist, and black sandals. But new thing Naruto noticed was a black tattoo of a saw-nosed shark turned to the left with the tail curving inward, the Jolly Roger of the Arlong Pirates. His target. Hello, Captain Hody, how are you today? Naruto greeted his captain with his shark-like smile. Heard that you were going to leave the island on the orders of Jinbe. Mind telling me why you neglected to tell me, your captain, this? Hody growled at the blonde. Sorry, Captain, it was on such short notice. Plus we didn't have anything planned for the next 2 weeks, so Naruto didn't get the chance to finish when the great white shark fishman slammed him against the wall. It hurt a little bit, but by now he was used to his captain's anger issues concerning him, plus the fact that his axe absorbed most of the impact helped a lot. You do not leave without telling me, Hody yelled at his subordinate. Sorry boss, it won't happen again, I promise. But can you please let me down? I have a schedule to keep, and I already sent my 3 brothers to the hospital because they delayed me. The blonde replied in a flat voice, honestly hoping that news calmed his captain. And it did. In fact, it calmed the captain of the new Fishman Pirates. He patted the 17-year-old on the shoulder with a smile, and reached into his pocket, producing a small black sack that he put into his hand. Well, don't take too long, all right, and if things get too rough for you, take these, they'll help you out in a pinch and make you stronger like they did me. And remember, he tapped his bandaged right forearm. You're one of us now, never forget that. I promise I won't, Captain. I'll return soon, I promise. Bidding his captain goodbye, Naruto soon left out of the airlock, his destination set to the Konomi Islands. A week passed since his departure from Fishman Island, and Naruto found himself annoyed as he stared at the eternal POS pointing him in the direction of the Konomi Islands. So far his journey took him away from his home, straight out of the Grand Line, and landed him in the East Blue of all places. Thankfully for the blonde, he didn't encounter any pirates, marines, or dangerous sea creatures along the way. He ate passing fish raw, slept on the sea floor when he got tired. It was a smooth journey. Except for one thing. I hate navigation. Whoever invented it is an asshole. Yep, Naruto was many things, but a navigator he was not. He couldn't count how many times he got lost due to powerful currents sending him off course, and when the eternal log POS showed him his destination, he arrived at the wrong island, twice. But his journey was at an end, at least he hoped it was when he emerged from the sea. After blinking the sea water from his eyes, he saw, with irritation, that the part he landed at had houses flipped upside down like an angry child turned them over in a temper tantrum. That's definitely the work of a fisherman, and I'm betting it was Arlong. Naruto looked serious for several long seconds before blowing a raspberry. Is that supposed to be an achievement? I can easily do that with one hand. And to prove it, the blonde used only his right hand to turn the nearest house right side up, and because he was bored, he flipped all the other houses back to their rightful positions before he strolled away in search for an intact village. It would be an hour later when the tiger shark fisherman found himself in a place called Kokoyashi Village. To his pleasant surprise, it was nice looking. Granted, it wasn't anything close to the beautiful coral and shelled homes, but it was nicely built, by humans. I haven't seen you before, stranger. Tell me, what is a youngster like yourself doing here? A thick voice questioned him from behind. Turning his head, Naruto saw an average-sized human wearing a brown police uniform with short sleeves and pants, and a yellow pinwheel on top of his police cap. He was pretty average-looking, especially with that epic black mustache, but his entire body was covered in dozens of stitched scars. Well, I heard that this was a lovely village, and decided to take a look. And I must admit, it's a decent enough village, Naruto replied, but it was pretty rude for the police officer. Oh, it was quite beautiful, at least until your kind showed up. Tell me, boy, so you know what kind of misery Arlong and his crew have brought us? The police officer narrowed his eyes, and the two were slowly becoming surrounded by various villagers. Not really, and honestly I don't care. The blonde glared at him. Then why are you here? If you're going to join his crew, then the villager was interrupted by Naruto's loud laugh that chilled his bones. I will never join the likes of Arlong, but if you could kindly point out his residence to me, then I will happily be on my way. Then what do you plan on doing? Try and talk him into leaving us. You're preaching the choir, kid. Arlong will never let us go. A cynical villager barked at the blonde. Like I said, I don't care. Naruto repressed the urge to growl at the villagers. Just tell me where I can find Arlong so I can get out of here. Head to the Tangerine Grove and ask for Nojiko. She will tell you where to find him. The police officer said to him. Ugh, fine, be that way. I'll talk to this Nojiko person, but hopefully he or she will be better help than all of you assholes. Naruto spat to the side and left the villagers behind him. After a half-hour of searching, Naruto eventually found his way to a quaint-looking place at the top of the hill just outside the village with the Tangerine Grove growing in the back. The tiger shark fisherman made his way to the front door and knocked 3 times before being greeted with a flintlock pistol in his face. I already paid my 50,000 belly, go away. A female voice greeted him. I'm not here for any money, and I'm not from Arlong's crew. Some asshole police officer sent me here so you can answer a question on mine. Naruto snatched the gun from the woman and tossed it over his shoulder in disgust. Also, if you're going to use a gun, be sure to use it. After the gun was dealt with, Naruto looked upon his attacker. She had green eyes, bluish hair with a red tie keeping bangs from her face. She wore black pants and a yellow sleeveless top that showed off a tattoo that reached from her shoulder across her chest. In her other hand was another flintlock pistol that was thrusted against his throat. Then what do you want, fishman? She demanded. Nojiko, is it? Is there any way you cannot threaten me with that gun? I'm only here to talk. Naruto boredly said, but he really didn't like the fact he had a gun at his throat. Drop the axe and we'll talk, fish boy. When Naruto pulled the gigantic anchor-turn axe from his vest, that was once again interwoven with small but very powerful magnets, he dropped it to the ground with a loud crash that left a small crater in her front yard. Good God, how heavy is that thing? It used to be an anchor. The blonde admitted, much to her surprise. That's all the weaponry I have, I swear. Now can you please let me ask my question? Nojiko sighed and moved out of the doorway. Fine, but I don't want anyone seeing you. Get in here. Rolling his eyes, Naruto walked inside so he could get his mission done and over with. Once he was inside, the adoptive son of Neptune took in what used to be a nice home. It was roomy enough for 2, maybe 3 people, with well-worn, second-hand furniture. But when he sat in one of the chairs within the kitchen, Naruto felt how comfortable it was. And when the brunette sat across from him, pistol in hand, he asked what he wanted to hear. The police officer told me that you had some information concerning your problem. It's a problem you can't solve. Nojiko narrowed her eyes. Maybe not for a human, but for a fisherman like myself I can deal with him. The problem is, I'm new to this entire area, and I need to find where Arlong is so I can go home. So can you help me with this? Why are you so determined to do this? Many people have tried to defeat Arlong, and each and every time he comes out victorious. The Marines are in his back pocket, the villagers are afraid to death of him, and bounty hunters who come around become food for his sea monster. Why are you so adamant about throwing your life away? First off, I'm not throwing my life away, and I will not lose to the likes of him, Naruto assured the woman, and I'm doing this because a man who had a hand in my training begged me to do it. He wrote in a letter that his former crewmate committed many atrocities on this island. That is an understatement. Nojiko snapped at him. A month ago he had his sea monster destroy Gosa village, 3 years ago he killed my friend and her entire family when they couldn't pay his outrageous taxes, and on the first day. Tears fell from her eyes when she recalled her worst memory. On the first day he arrived in my village, he shot my mother right in front of me and my little sister before forcefully taking her into his crew as a slave. When Nojiko finished her tale of woe, Naruto found himself thinking of the day Otoheim was assassinated right in front of Shirahoshi and the others. And his parents, his people in general being sold into slavery, that hit him right where it hurt when he saw the tears running down her eyes. God seeing her like that caused him to remember the pain and misery the world nobles brought him, and seeing the misery one his own kind brought upon what used to be such happy people. It just didn't sit right with Naruto at all. Tell me where he is. I'll stop him once and for all. And how do you plan on stopping him, huh? Do you plan on taking on his entire crew? How do you plan on beating his lieutenants? Can you even count yourself strong enough to even beat him? Nojiko seemed almost hysterical. A water shot putting a hole through one of her walls shut her up. I will ask you one last time, where is Arlong? Naruto snarled at the woman with his anger barely contained within his voice. Arlong Park, it's 2 miles to the south of the village. Thank you, now was that so hard? The blonde asked before he reached into his pouch and pulled out several bills before slapping them on the table. Sorry about the hole in the wall, this will be more than enough to cover the damages. Who knows, there might be enough to buy yourself a nice dress. After removing himself from the kitchen and from the house, Naruto picked up his mighty axe and left to finish his business with Arlong. It was a shame that his journey would take a turn for the worst because of it. After storming through the village and running the 2 miles as instructed, Naruto found himself standing outside the gates of Arlong Park. In his opinion, the blonde thought the entire thing looked like a complete eyesore. Seriously, that tower was obnoxious. After he dealt with Arlong, that thing was becoming rubble. Man, he had a lot of destructive urges to deal with. Before he could open the gate, it was opened for him to reveal an average-sized woman with orange hair that reached to her neck, and light brown eyes. She wore a green camisole top with dark green flower shapes, tight black shorts with 2 yellow rings on the sides, and light orange high-heeled sandals. Clutched in her bandaged right hand was a wooden bow staff. Thank you, I was just about to enter, Naruto thanked the woman, but before he could enter the park she slammed the gate shut. Well, looks like I have another moody bitch on my hands. The orange-haired woman didn't answer, instead she narrowed her eyes, almost as if she was trying to analyze him. Several heartbeats later she finally spoke, You're not one of Arlong's crew. No shit, Sherlock, what gave me away? Was it that I'm the new guy on the island, or was it that lack of his Jolly Roger on my body? The blonde snipped at her. Crossing her arms over her somewhat impressive chest, the woman glared at him. Well then, what are you here for, fishman? Have you come this way to join his crew or to die? I swear if one more person. Holding the violent thoughts in his head, Naruto calmly responded to the woman. I've come for neither, and what the hell is a human doing with the likes of him? Isn't it obvious? She turned her left shoulder towards him, showing him the tattoo of Arlong's Jolly Roger. I am part of his crew. As what? A punching bag or a slave? Naruto's sharp teeth gleamed in the sunlight, so this was the sister Nojiko told him about. But then again, it wasn't too hard to figure it out since she came out unharmed. And apparently his slave remark struck a chord within the orange-haired woman. Shut up, I'm not his slave. I'm his chief of staff. Whatever helps you sleep at night, slave girl. The blonde continued to taunt her. Don't you call me that, my name is Nami. Remember it, you stupid fish. Like I care about your name, now move out of my way, I have a job to do. Fine. Just don't expect me to cry over your mangled body once Arlong is done with you. Nami huffed and trotted away. Geez, are all human women this bitchy? Naruto grumbled to himself before he opened the gate and slammed it shut behind him. Fishman Island. Meanwhile, on Fishman Island, Neptune was once again sitting in his son's hospital room. His mighty shoulders were slumped, his head bowed, and parts of his once orange beard had tiny slivers of gray. He honestly couldn't believe that his adoptive son would do something like that to his siblings. Roboshi and Manboshi got off easy with a few broken ribs. But Fukaboshi, with all the deep lacerations on his muscular body and several broken bones, he was going to be out of commission for several months. Aladdin, how could it come to this? He asked the doctor overseeing their treatment. You and I both know the reason. The Queen's final wish has been wasted on that boy. Take a look at what he's done. After all the love, attention, and training, you get rewarded with 3 wounded sons. The goatsbeard Brachula Merman scornfully replied. Please don't be too hard on the boy. The power of the Sea King is a terrible burden. It draws upon raw emotion. If the person is angry, he will involuntarily lash out without meaning to, and if he's sad, it'll bring him into a spiraling depression. That is what I was going to tell him before he left, to always maintain control of his emotions. A lot of good that did. Fukaboshi, the only conscious brother, barely managed to wheeze out due to his broken jaw. Try not to talk, my prince, Aladdin admonished the blue-haired merman. Your jaw is still broken in 4 places, and I would hate to sedate you and wrap your entire face to prevent any further damage. Sorry. The shark merman winced when he felt the bones on his jaw shift. I just have a bad feeling. I feel that we won't see him for years. Just rest easy. I will send a letter to Jinbi. Hopefully he can knock some sense into that boy. Neptune promised his son. I'm sorry, father, but I think it may be far too late for that. Well, who do we have here? A deep, arrogant voice greeted the blonde after slamming the gate shut. Naruto didn't answer at first. Instead, his blue eyes scanned the 30 crew members. They were probably tough as nails, but paled in comparison to the 3 lieutenants and the target he was gunning for. He first took note of a muscular, sandy-haired, blue-skinned, smelt-whiting fishman. He had the Arlong Pirate's Jolly Roger tattooed on his right shoulder, wore a white beaded necklace, a striped blue vest, and plain sandals. Judging by his thick lips, he was a long-distance fighter. The second was a white-skinned ray fishman. He had the typical appearance of a martial artist, with a dark blue gi and a black belt. His black hair was tied into a long ponytail. What Naruto found odd was the Sun Pirate's tattoo is on the right side of his chest. He honestly hoped he would be a challenge if he had to deal with him. The third was pink-skinned octopus fishman wearing a yellow and brown striped outfit with a baby blue sash tied around his waist. He had 6 muscular, suction-cupped arms, and an octopus-like face. His gray hair was styled with 5 spikes, and planted right on his forehead was a tattoo in the shape of a sun on his forehead. Son of a bitch, he was a part of the Sun Pirates as well? The fourth and final person was Arlong himself. He was a large, muscular, and light blue saw-shark fishman whose most distinctive trait was his saw-shaped nose. He had long, black hair sprouting from the back of his neck, reaching down to his shoulders, under a brown ashenka, covering his head. He had a fin on his nape, surrounded by his hair, and the gills are located on both the sides of his neck. His Sun Pirate's tattoo was on the left side of his chest, while his own Jolly Roger was on his lower left arm. His attire was composed of fashionable, light clothes, reflecting his rich status. He wore a sleeveless, unbuttoned yellow shirt decorated by many black lightning-like spots, Bermuda shorts that were a puke green color, a purple sash around the waist, and simple sandals. He was also sporting a lot of jewels, like the golden chain bracelet around his left wrist and 2 golden bracelets around each ankle, with straw-like decorations hanging from them. Good God, Naruto never wanted to punch a person so much in his entire life. Hey boy, are you deaf? What the hell are you doing here? Arlong bellowed at the blonde. I'm here in regards of the Knight of the Sea, Sawtooth Arlong. You are under arrest. Naruto boldly said to the fishman. However, I'm willing to disregard these orders if you join my captain's crew. Shahahaha. Arlong bellowed in laughter, causing his entire crew to laugh along with him. Apparently it was one big joke to the ruler of the island. That is a good one, boy. Oh, I haven't laughed like that in years. Now be serious, what are you here for? I'm being serious here, Arlong. Before I left Fishman Island, I saw my captain with your Jolly Roger tattooed on his forearm. He never told me about you, and it would put me in better graces with him if I recruited you and your crew to our cause. If not, well, I have my orders, so it's a win-win situation for me. That statement caused Kurubi, the ray fishman, to raise an eyebrow. He could have sworn the young man in front of them was a human. You're from the island? You certainly don't look like a fishman to me, boy. Glaring at him, Naruto turned to the side to show the dorsal fin sticking out from the back of his vest, which was resting comfortably next to the handle of his giant axe. As you can see, I'm a fishman. He then flashed his sharp teeth at them. I believe that proves I'm of your species. I'll be damned, a half-breed. Chew, The smelt whiting fishman whistled in astonishment, as if he was viewing a rare species. I'm not a half-breed, you gay asshole. It took a lot to make Naruto mad, and being called a half-breed was one of them. Pointing to his gills on his neck and the thick black tiger stripes on his arms, he said, I'm a full-blooded fishman, the proud son of a fishman and a mermaid. Whatever, kid. I hate to tell you this, but your journey was a complete waste of time. Now why don't you go away and cry to your mother? I don't have a mother to cry to. I have not cried since both my mother and father were taken from me, and when Queen Otoheim was assassinated. That last bit of news stunned the members of the Arlong pirates. Queen Otoheim was dead? A couple of them felt a twinge of loss. She was a good woman, for a mermaid that is. Arlong, however, smiled at the news, and he even gave a big belly laugh afterwards. Sha ha 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 ha. This is great news, boy, you do not know how much her speeches annoyed me. Equality with humans, what a joke. A good human is a dead human, especially what they did to Fisher Tiger. The loss of Fisher Tiger was a great tragedy for our kind. Naruto agreed with Arlong on that statement. After all, one didn't train under Jinbe without hearing stories of his old crew, especially the legendary Fisher Tiger. But his blue eyes turned to ice when he badmouthed the queen. But I suggest you watch your mouth, you do not disrespect the honored dead. Our captain can disrespect anyone he wants to, you little twerp. Now get the hell out of here while we're still in a good mood. One of the crew members bellowed at the tiger shark fishman. And you can bite me, Naruto angrily retorted. I'm not leaving until the blonde didn't get a chance to finish his sentence when he was forced to jump away from a speeding water bullet that left a nasty hole in the ground. Once he landed, he glared at the smelt whiting fishman who was puffing his cheeks for another shot of water. Don't miss him this time, Chu, Arlong ordered. Water gun. Chu gurgled before he spat a shot of water from his mouth at high speeds and pressure. It was a simple, but deadly technique that was compared to a flintlock pistol's bullet. Naruto, however, stood his ground, forcing a droplet of water into his right palm. He shot off the water bullet straight at Chu's water technique. The two techniques impacted each other for several seconds before Naruto's destroyed the water gun bullet. The water bullet hit Chu's forehead with devastating impact, and the smelt whiting fishman blinked twice, feeling the warm watery blood from the inch-wide, perfectly circular hole pouring from his forehead before slumping over and hitting the floor dead to the world. Kill him, Arlong bellowed. Gripping the handle of his axe, Naruto pulled it from his magnet interwoven vest and swung it at the first charging fishman, cleanly cleaving him in half. Another fishman pulled out a flintlock pistol and shot at him. The blonde lowered his giant axe, deflecting the bullet, and grabbing the chain he swirled it and the 50-pound iron ball at the end of it in the air, launching it into a devastating wide arc that caught several unsuspecting fishmen by surprise. The iron ball hit one unfortunate fishman in the ribs, shattering them into splinters that penetrated his organs, while the chain swept 4 of Arlong's crew members away from him, cutting an unfortunate one in half. His eyes hardening in anger at the whelp harming his crew, Arlong turned towards Hachan, the octopus fishman. Hachi, call in our pet. This brat is a dangerous one. The octopus fishman looked at his captain, stunned that they would call their beast out so early. But as it was necessary to prevent any more losses of his friends, he had to do it. Bringing his 4 hands to his mouth, he screamed out into the ocean, "Come on out, Momo. I've got an extra snack for you today." Naruto had to hold back a wince when he heard Hachi's voice. It was just that damn loud. But incidentally, it also held off his attackers. They all had wide, vicious smiles on their faces. That honestly couldn't have been good news. Barely 10 heartbeats later, a gigantic form emerged from the sea. It revealed a giant white and green patched sea cow. He had a big round nose with a gold nose ring, cow-esque face and horns, with flipper for feet and a tail that allowed him to swim fast. But to Hachi's surprise, the thing already had a lump on its giant head. Ah! Momo, what happened to you? He then turned to Naruto, who was looking at them like they were a bunch of idiots. You! What did you do to Moma? Me? I didn't do shit to him. And what the hell? You guys have a freaking sea cow, the most useless beast of the sea. For the love of God, my father used to hunt those for the restaurant before he died. Don't insult Momo! Hachi screamed at his enemy. Go on, boy, get him! When nothing happened, the octopus fishman looked to see the gigantic sea cow cowering and crying when he looked at the blonde. To the sea cow, the tiger shark fishman just reeked of anger and hate, and his self-preservation instincts were screaming at him to not fight him. Don't do it, cow. I'll eat you if you do, Naruto threatened the sea creature. Momo, what are you doing? Arlong's voice caused the creature's spine to straighten. The blonde was scary, but Arlong was also just as terrifying. Don't just sit there, deal with that brat. Momo looked back and forth between his master and the scary tiger shark. The beast was beginning to sweat in fear. He was stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and both would hurt him no matter what he did. Moma. Arlong spoke in a threatening tone. The sea cow knew that he couldn't defy his master. He knew that Arlong would provide a vicious punishment upon him if he didn't follow his orders. So hoping that the tiger shark fishman would have some sort of mercy upon him, he turned toward Naruto bellowing aloud, "Muh!" Naruto shook his head with a frown on his face. What a stupid creature. You are screwed. You know that, right? The outskirts of Kokoyashi village 5 miles away. Meanwhile, within the outskirts of Kokoyashi village, the members of the Straw Hat Pirates learned the truth about their certain orange-haired navigator's betrayal. From what they learned, Nami was forced to join Arlong's crew after he overtook the village and murdered her adoptive mother, and the only way to free herself and the island was to buy it off the cruel fishman at the cost of 100 million belly. Nami had saved up to 93 million belly, almost enough to buy their freedom, but then Nizumi, a corrupted marine captain, ransacked her home under Arlong's order, shot her adoptive sister, and stole her stolen, but hard-earned funds. Now she had nothing, and out of anger sliced into the tattoo on her shoulder in a desperate attempt to be rid of it. It was only due to her captain, Monkey D. Luffy, that prevented her from mutilating herself any further. He was a relatively normal-sized muscular human with tan skin, messy black hair, and black eyes. His attire was extremely simple, which consisted of blue cut-off jeans, sandals, and a buttoned-up sleeveless red vest. He also had a scar with 2 stitches underneath his left eye, and his signature straw hat was upon his navigator's head for the time being. The first mate of the crew leaned against the nearest tree after hearing the tale of woe. He was Roronoa Zoro, an average-sized, muscular young man with lightly tanned skin and cropped green hair. His current attire consisted of an open, navy blue shirt decorated with light blue whirlpools and visible bandages to cover up a newly received wound. He wore black trousers tucked inside black boots with a pure white sword bundled up with a green haramaki over his right hip. He had 3 identical gold earrings on his left earlobe, and a black bandana tied around his left bicep. The sniper of the crew was Usopp, a slim, somewhat dark-skinned teenager with medium-length black curly hair and a long nose. He wore of an olive-green plaid bandana, a blue and white striped armband on his left arm, special sniper goggles, brown overalls with a white sash and no shirt underneath. He also carried a yellow satchel with him that held various tools, and of all things, a slingshot as his weapon of choice. The final member of their crew was their chef named Sanji, a slim, yet muscular, long-legged young man with blonde hair that he kept brushed over the left side of his face to reveal black eyes and an odd curly eyebrow. He was dressed better than the rest of his crewmates, wearing a black, double-breasted suit with a black tie and long-sleeved blue pinstripe shirt. Currently he was smoking a cigarette that was nearly down to the butt. Nami looks up at her former captain, a man she betrayed, stunned that he placed his most prized possession on her head. His black eyes burned in fury at what Arlong did to his friend. "Nami, leave this to us. Arlong will pay for what he did to you," Luffy said to his crewmate. "But you can't fight him, he's too strong. Another guy came to try to do the same thing, and he's probably shark food by now." Nami begged Luffy to reconsider. Before she could continue, a gigantic looming shadow appeared above them, and at least half the crew screamed in terror when the gigantic shape crashed where they were standing barely 10 seconds ago. "What the hell is that?" Zoro demanded. "Hey, wait a second, Luffy, it's that cow that we beat up." Sanji pointed at the unconscious sea creature. "What the impossible?" Nami exclaimed deliriously. "Moma. How? We are at least 5 miles from Arlong Park. What kind of monster can throw something that heavy?" "Maybe it was that guy that you told us about," Zoro said. "No way, even if he is a fishman there is no way he could do that." "Only one way to find out. Come on guys, we have Arlong's ass to kick," Luffy happily exclaimed before running off to where he saw the giant sea cow fly from. Sanji only sniffed the air and looked towards Usopp. "Did you shit yourself?" "Arlong Park, dear God in heaven," Hachi whispered in disbelief. Naruto pulled off what most of them thought was impossible. He survived Momo's infamous belly flop of death. He actually lifted the sea cow over his head and threw the beast away, destroying the gate and half the trees surrounding Arlong Park in the process. That was not all. His muscles were bulging, not the athletic type, but the body-building type. And his eyes, once blue at the sea itself, were nothing but pure crimson. Naruto snarled at the grunts and raised both his arms, calling upon the water within the pool of Arlong Park. And just like in his fight with Ace, the water obeyed his manipulation, for water spirals spinning in motion to the point where it was nothing but compactly pressured water spears. "Water Fong Bullet!" he bellowed, thrusting his arms outwards, and the spinning water drills surged forth, impaling several members of the crew. After 4 of the fishermen fell down dead, the ones with pistols aimed and fired at the blonde. Instead of hitting him, the tiger shark jumped into the air and dived head first into the ground. Where did he go? One of the crew members cried out in fear. I don't know. Another screamed before dropping his flintlock pistol and drawing his cutlass. Oh man, we're screwed. Did you see that kid? He ain't normal. Another fisherman holding a dagger sweated. Relax, we're back to back, there is no way that. The words died in that fisherman's mouth when Naruto's body exploded from underneath their feet. The three fishermen screamed in horrific pain when they fell prey to his shredding shark technique. It was a simple technique that had Naruto spin extremely fast forward, or in this case upwards, with his dorsal fin in front, turning his entire body into a high speeds that ripped apart anything it touched. And well, they were considered nothing more than scraps of meat when Naruto was done with them. That was the scene that the members of the Straw Hat Pirates minus Luffy, who got lost on the way, several villagers, and Zoro's former bounty hunting partners, Johnny and Yasaku, saw the carnage the blonde was inflicting upon Arlong's crew. They also saw him hurling his gigantic axe, slicing apart two more unfortunate fishmen while the iron ball crushed another's head, and the chain tore an unfortunate clown fisherman's arm off. As he descended, Naruto opened up his mouth and unleashed a powerful jet of water at his victims. And the villagers, many of them who were prepped for revolting against the crew, looked on in horror and disgust when the water obliterated the first unfortunate fishman, and then proceeded to devastate the entire area around them. After he ceased his attack, Naruto rotated forward, building up extreme speed, building in momentum until he slammed into the one-armed fisherman with both of heels, screaming, "Double spiral axe kick!" A few people actually fainted when the one-armed fisherman exploded into a shower of blood, and Naruto left a 10-foot crater of blood and organs. Spitting to the side, the blonde brought up his right arm, and gave the three remaining members of the crew a come-at-me gesture with his hand. It was Kurubi who rose to the challenge. Rushing at the blonde, he raised his right arm to hit Naruto with his 100-tile punch, an attack strong enough to send his opponents flying. Naruto easily ducked underneath it, nailing him with his own punch right in the ribs, sending the Ray Fishman flying away from him instead. After skidding to a stop, Kurubi held his right side gingerly. After one punch he could feel at least 3 broken ribs. Impressive, young one, you managed to beat 3 of my ribs. That hasn't happened since Fuguki-sensei beat the unloving hell out of me in my first days at the dojo. Yeah, that pufferfish was always a cruel teacher. Naruto agreed with him. Oh, so you're a student of fishman karate as well. For one as young as yourself you have to be at least level 28. Letting go of his ribs, the Ray Fishman ran at him once again. Too bad you're no match for a level 40 like myself. Level 40? Geez, he fights like a level 10. The tiger shark fishman thought to himself. He met Kurubi head on. He punched out with his right fist, only for it to be deflected by his opponent's left palm. So Naruto tried to nail him with a left open-handed strike, but to the Ray Fishman grabbed his fist in an iron grip, twirled on his right heel, and slammed the back of his left arm fin into the back of his opponent's neck. Naruto let out a strained cry of pain when he felt the pressure against his neck. Most of his body lost sensation as he was flung forward and hit the ground rolling. He coughed several times just to get his breathing under control. He had taken many beatings in his life, and he always got back up from them, but this was something very different. That was my arm blade slash boy, Kurubi said with a smug grin. Many fighters don't know this, but the back of your neck is very important. If your neck takes too much abuse, like what I just did to you, they could lose sensation in their bodies, or even become paralyzed. He walked over towards his downed opponent and picked him up by the neck. Fortunately for you, I didn't feel your spine break, but you're extremely numb, aren't you? Actually, I feel rather refreshed. Naruto smirked at him, which was wiped off when the pale fishman backhanded him. Ah, was that supposed to be a love slap? Sorry, but I don't swing that way. His smart mouth was rewarded with another backhand, this time dislodging some teeth. Tell me, boy, did it please you to kill my crewmates? To butcher them like animals, you may be one of my kind, but even we are more humane than you. Really? If you're so humane, then why come to this stupid island? Why charge outrageous taxes to these people? Why recruit a human into your crew, and why shoot her mother with a gun right in front of her? Tell me, is that humane? I call it cruelty. Naruto spat into his opponent's face. That is none of your concern. Kurubi rose his right fist. You should be honored, boy. Not many get a chance to witness my ultimate instant kill technique, the 1000-tile punch. Then he punched at his face to finish him off. Or he would have if Naruto didn't scream out Wrath of Jaws. He opened his mouth wide open and bit down on his opponent's clenched fist, biting everything off at the knuckles. The shock of losing all of his fingers involuntarily caused Kurubi to release his opponent and grab the stumps of what used to be his fingers. This gave Naruto his chance of taking his opponent down. Clenching his right fist, he punched the Ray Fishman in the knees, shattering the bones and forcing him to kneel. Then he punched him in the shoulders, rendering his arms useless due to even more shattered bones. If not for his strained throat, Kurubi could have screamed his lungs out, but instead he could only look into his opponent's eyes. Spitting the fingers from his mouth, the blonde looked at his defeated opponent. You may be level 40, but that is no match for a level 60 like myself, Naruto said, shocking the injured fishman, and to truthfully answer your question, it does not please me to do this to my kind. Rest peacefully knowing that fact. His final words said to the ray fishman, Naruto delivered a devastating punch to Kurubi's sternum, shattering ever his entire ribcage with the kinetic force of the technique. 500 tile break. He heard his opponent say his devastating technique. Falling onto his back, Kurubi couldn't help but think of the power that young man had. His last punch was perfect, and he died knowing that he was bested by the better opponent. On the sidelines, Genzo placed one of his hands on his scarred face. The police officer felt the sting of that particular fishman's swords that scarred him for life. And for 8 years he still felt the pain he gave him with each and every wound on his body. But now that he saw him dead on the ground, he felt the pain from his wounds finally leave him. And tears came to his eyes. Oh God, it was such a relief. But for Nami, it was a complete shock. Kurubi was the second most powerful fighter in Arlong's crew, and to be taken down by some no-name shark fishman that looked almost human. It was almost inconceivable. And for the first time in her life she felt something he almost forgot about: hope. Arlong! A familiar voice alerted the crowd. The members of the Straw Hat Pirates turned around to see their captain racing towards the scene. From the look in his eyes, it was something akin of tunnel vision. And knowing Luffy, he didn't see the carnage in front of him, the tan tiger shark fishman, or any of them in particular. All he saw was the monster that hurt his friend. Luffy jumped over everybody with ease, screamed his lungs out at Arlong to fight him, and then was promptly backhanded by the blonde fishman, sending him through whatever was left of the gate. And through the village where they heard the shattering wood from several houses from 2 miles away. Don't interrupt my fight. They heard him scream at the teenager's flying form. That might teach my idiot captain a lesson. I hope. Zoro thought to himself, while Usopp looked flabbergasted at what he saw. After backhanding the rude human out of the park, Naruto turned towards the last remaining members of the decimated crew. This time it was the octopus who charged at him with 6 swords of all things. He began swinging all 6 swords wildly, forcing the tiger shark to frantically duck and dive away from the sharp blades. When Hachi swung all 6 arms diagonally, the blonde fishman had to backflip several times until he reached his axe. Back down, octopus, my beef is with Arlong, not you. Grabbing the handle of the weapon with his right hand and the chain with his left, he gave a threatening gesture by swinging the ball and chain. I will not! Hachi cried, actually cried with tears pooling down his face. I cannot let you go, not after what you did. Chew. Kurubi. We were going to open a takoyaki stand together, and you killed them. I cannot allow you to live. 0 visibility, Hachi inkjet. The octopus fishman spat out a stream of black ink at the blonde. Shit! Cursing, Naruto sprinted to the side to avoid the attack that was obviously meant to blind and incapacitate. If he was hit, that was it, game over. If he couldn't see, he would not have been able to get to the pool to wash off, and with those 6 swords he would be considered nothing but sushi. So to try and make things even, he opened his mouth and forced a large torrent of water at the octopus fishman, mixing ink and water together. It soon turned into a battle of wills between the two, water and ink trying to overpower each other. It was the blonde who trudged on forward, trying to overpower his opponent until he was 5 feet away. His respect for the octopus went up a notch, because people couldn't stand up to such a powerful stream of water, and trust me, many tried to duplicate that technique, and failed miserably. Gripping the handle of his axe, Naruto swung it to cleave his opponent in half. But Hachan pointed all his swords together out in front of him with their back edges all pointed to each other, and arranged in a circular array over his chest to block the attack. The two cut off their attacks, and began a desperate struggle to overwhelm each other. It wasn't until Hachan split his swords apart, which caused Naruto's weapon arm to go wide, leaving him defenseless to a devastating headbutt to his chest that flung him into the air. I got you now! Taste the fury of the second best swordsman on Fishman Island. Hachan bellowed, 6-sword style ultimate technique, 6-sword waltz. Spinning all 6 swords over his head like a fan blade, he was intending on shredding his descending opponent to pieces. As Naruto fell to the ground, he swung his axe in a last-ditch attempt to defend himself from the onslaught of blades. Now either it was the purest luck or something else entirely, but when the double-headed axe hit the fan of blades, they all shattered into pieces. Hachi looked at his broken blades in disbelief, and then he looked at Naruto, giving him his infamous shark-like smile. If you survive this, open that stand of yours. After saying his final words to the octopus fishman, the blonde delivered a wicked uppercut, and sent Hachi flying out of Arlong Park and into the sea. Didn't think that would happen, Naruto said to himself before turning towards Arlong, But now that everyone else out of the way, it's just you and me, Arlong. You brat! Arlong snarled, finally standing from his throne. He couldn't believe it, his entire crew was gone, wiped out by a no-name brat. How dare you! Oh, how dare I! Naruto mocked the enraged fishman. How about this, how dare you? You were nothing more than a small fry on Fishman Island, constantly picked on, then you left, and formed what used to be the Arlong Pirates, joined the great fisher tiger, and then got your sorry ass arrested after he died. After getting released you got into one last fight with Jinbe, and after he beat your sorry ass into unconsciousness to the point where you needed to be carried off, you arrived at this island. And from what I've seen you just bullied the weak into doing what you wanted. You may be the most powerful pirate of the East Blue where it's considered the weakest part of the ocean, but all I see in front of me is a bitch. Naruto's rant was the last straw for the saw shark fishman roared in fury. Shark on darts. Arlong used his powerful legs to lunge at the blonde like a torpedo with his unbreakable nose. He was fast, but his speed obviously dwindled while he ruled the island, having Naruto barely dodging the attack with his honed reflexes. When Arlong crashed into the nearest wall, Naruto kept up his insults to further enrage his opponent. You know, Master Jinbe told me a lot of stories during our times on the surface. Interesting stuff, by the way. He paused to leap out of Arlong's attack, and getting a small cut on his side for his trouble. Is this all you can manage? How the mighty have fallen! Shut up, you brat! The saw shark bellowed. Reaching underneath the back of his shirt, he pulled out a flintlock pistol, but before he could even get a shot off, he was greeted with a punch to the mouth that shattered all his teeth, throwing him backwards into the gigantic building he used as a headquarters. Picking up the dropped pistol, Naruto growled, just seeing the damn thing. And to top it all off, you're using a gun? Does it make you happy to use something that can easily end someone's life? He crushed it in disgust and threw the remains to the side. Fisher Tiger would be disappointed in you, especially lowering yourself to the Tenryubito's level by forcefully branding you mark on another living being. You're lower than scum. On the sidelines, the villagers looked on in a mixture of awe and hope. The once invincible Arlong, their tyrant of 8 years who once was like an angry god, was now. There just wasn't a word to describe what they were witnessing. Nami in particular was feeling her heart thumping against her chest. Never did she think that Arlong, her longtime tormentor, could be fought, let alone hurt. And when she saw said fishman bursting out of the building wielding a gigantic black pole with 6 saw-toothed patterned black blades, resembling a shark's saw-like teeth. The Kiribachi saw shark, look out! She screamed at Naruto. Well, this has escalated quickly, Naruto said with his shark-like grin. Awesome, I always wanted to see how my Saibanin Kayumumi, judge of the ocean and sea, could stand up to another weapon. Readying his gigantic anchor axe, the blonde blocked the Zanbato-class sword with the side for the axe head. The two weapons clashed in a horrible screech of metal, sparks flew from the side of the axe, and Arlong laughed. Naruto, however, narrowed his blue eyes and did the unthinkable. He let go of his weapon, bolted forward, and shoulder-tackled the saw-shark fishman. The force of the blow shattered some of Arlong's ribs, causing his to cough out in a mixture of surprise and pain when they both smashed through the wall of his headquarters. Once inside the dining area, they both rolled around in a fit of violence, their fists striking each other's sides, their knees striking whatever they could. Hell, Naruto even managed to bite into Arlong's chest and completely tore the sun tattoo from his flesh. That devastating action caused Arlong to roar out in pain and fury before slugging Naruto right in the mouth and sending him into a table. You fucking insect! Arlong bellowed at his assailant, his webbed hand going to his chest to futilely stem the bleeding from the loss of his tattoo. That tattoo meant a lot to me. Flipping the busted section of wood off of him, Naruto stood glaring at his target. Spitting the flesh onto the floor, the blonde grinned mockingly at Arlong. You don't deserve something like that. As I recall, Fisher Tiger never once did anything more than beat the crap out of people. He never killed one, let alone enslave them. You're nothing more than scum, Arlong. Snarling in response, Arlong regrew his shattered teeth. Then he yanked them out of his mouth, regrew them again, and pulled them out. After regrowing them one last time, he assaulted Naruto with the snapping weapons. Fully knowing that getting hit by one of them would hurt, Naruto ducked and dived out of the way. Arlong lashed out with one of the teeth castanets and took out a chunk out of a wooden pillar. Shit! Rolling away, Naruto planted his feet on the ground and backflipped several feet away until he found himself behind the bar. From there he found the bottles of booze and began throwing them at the saw-shark fishman. Several of the bottles missed the charging fishman, but when he got close, Arlong was nailed on the stomach, his right leg, his left arm, causing him to drop his toothed weapon, and even once on his nose. But despite glass piercing his flesh and the blood running down his body, he grabbed Naruto by the throat before he could throw another bottle of booze at him. Giving the blonde a vicious smile of victory, Arlong wasted in no time in piercing Naruto's right side with his toothed weapon. He reveled in the agonizing look that was given when he did so, but it quickly died when the wine bottle in Naruto's right hand smashed against his head. He screamed when he felt the glass tear into his skin, and through his right eye, blinding him. He then screamed even more when the neck of the shattered bottle plunged into his neck, right where his internal carotid artery was. Feeling his opponent's grip slacken, Naruto pried himself free. Afterwards he curled his right fingers and punched Arlong right in the stomach. After making contact he fully formed his hand into a fist, putting more power behind the attack, sending a great deal of kinetic force through Arlong's body, shattering several bones. Thousand-tile shatter fist. If Arlong didn't know pain by this point, he certainly knew it by now. He screamed until his voice became hoarse when he felt his guts turn to mush, and his bones shattering. He felt his feet leaving the ground and blasted through one of the walls and into the courtyard once again. On the outside of the building, the citizens of Kokoyashi village held their breaths in anticipation. For the past 5 minutes they heard nothing but the sound of fists against flesh, screams of anger and agony, and what sounded like breaking glass. It was around that time when a bruised Luffy joined them, who in turn had to be held back by both Zoro and Sanji. He was extremely pissed off, not by the way he was backhanded by the blonde, but how he stole his fight with the jerk that dare hurt his crewmate. It was only when a bloodied and battered Arlong crashing through the wall did he stop shouting. Arlong was a literal wreck. His left pectoral muscle was nothing more than a mess of hanging meat, his right eye completely gone, glass jutting from left arm and his right leg and whatever was left of his stomach. And was that the neck of a wine bottle sticking out of his neck? The worst was his entire torso. Several townsfolk lost their lunch, or fainted from the sheer multitude of bones jutting out from underneath his skin. And despite all those injuries, Arlong was still alive. Coming out of the hole in the building was the fishman who started the fight. He looked worse for wear, with several parts of his pants slightly dirted and torn from their fight from the inside, and the right side turning a fine crimson color due to the blood dripping out of the wound that still held Arlong's set of teeth. The tiger shark was also bruised in several areas, especially in his neck area where it looked like he was strangled. Grabbing a hold of the teeth in his side, the fisherman pried them off his side with a grunt, and tossed them to the side. He was in pain. After all, he was bitten by possibly the strongest teeth of Arlong's generation, but it didn't stop him from spitting to the side before opening his broken-toothed mouth. And so ends the mighty Arlong. It's a shame that it had to be like this, my captain. Fuck your captain! Arlong coughed out a massive amount of blood. He could feel the bone fragments in his pierced lungs, he could feel the blood pooling around his gigantic frame, but he honestly couldn't believe he was dying because of Jinbe's no-name attack dog and whoever his captain was. And fuck you too. You cannot beat me, I'm the invincible Arlong. I single-handedly took over this pitiful island, I command the most powerful fighting force in all the East Blue. You can't beat me, you no-name bastard child. After his speech, Arlong began choking on his own blood, and fury coursed through Naruto's veins. His eyes began to turn crimson once more, his muscles bulging once more, adrenaline coursing through his system. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, you son of a bitch! He then turned around and with a great amount of effort he pulled the wooden building straight from its foundations. Naruto's arms were shaking like crazy, his legs nearly bucking from under him, but he didn't care, he just wanted to kill Arlong in the most inhumane way possible. And I suggest you remember that when I send you to hell. Oh my god! Run for your lives! Genzo screamed. Awesome! Luffy screamed out in excitement. Run, you idiot, or you'll die! Zoro grabbed his captain by the back of his vest and dragged him away from the area. You run faster, sword boy! Sanji shouted with several of the unconscious civilians on his shoulders. After they somewhat cleared the area of soon-to-be devastation, Naruto slammed the building down on Arlong. God, what a mess! Zoro muttered before chucking a large wooden beam away from ground zero. Hey! Watch it, Mosshead! Sanji bellowed at his crewmate after he dodged the beam. Knock it off, you guys! We need to find that blonde guy! Luffy scolded the first mate and cook of his crew. It took 15 minutes for the dust to clear after Naruto literally dropped the huge-ass building on the most hated being on the island. Then almost immediately the good people of the village began searching for the fishman who saved them from the tyrant. Now was it weird that they were looking for a fishman? Yes. Was it somewhat ironic? Pretty much. Did they care? No, they did not. To the men, women, and children of Kokoyashi village the blonde fishman was their saving grace, and they would be damned if they didn't do everything in their power to save him even if he was a fishman. Hey! I found something! Usopp bellowed from his area. Both Luffy and Zoro made their way over to the area their sharpshooter managed to clear. It wasn't the body of Naruto or Arlong, but their two weapons. Zoro tried picking up the anchor axe and actually found himself trying to lift it. He knew that the fishmen were strong, but damn, the tiger shark was around their age and could lift the damn thing with ease? It made him feel weak. Or was that the sudden blood loss from his popping stitches? Yeah, it was probably the latter. After setting the thing down where it belonged for now, the green-haired swordsman made his way over to their navigator. She seemed stunned, and he couldn't blame her. After 8 years of servitude for a monster like Arlong and finding yourself free, it could be a lot to take in. However, before he could give her consoling words a guy like him could offer, they all heard a loud clapping sound. They turned to see Captain Nozumi of the Marines. He was an average-sized man with the appearance of a rat with whiskers on his face, with a minor brown soul patch on his chin, and rat ears attached to his marine cap. His uniform consisted of a long-sleeved white captain's coat, black pants, and nicely shined black leather shoes. And surrounding him was a ship full of Marines, and the cabin boy carrying a large sack on his back. Well, isn't today my lucky day? I had the chance to watch a very interesting fight from the beginning to the end. However, no one will believe that a lone fisherman would single-handedly defeat Arlong and his entire crew. He then began to crackle, the sin of greed oozing from his entire body. And because of this, every single belly in this village will be mine. Drop your weapons. I, Captain Nozumi of Unit 16, will be happy to accept all of the treasure. Before he could give the command to his men to open fire, declare this horrible tragedy the work of the now deceased Arlong, and take the credit for killing him himself. A bandaged tiger-striped arm burst from the rubble and latched onto his face. The rat-like man screamed in horror and pain as 5 fingers dug into his skull. His assailant was none other than Uzumaki Naruto. He looked like an absolute demon, his eyes crimson, blood pouring from his wounds, and his muscles budging in anticipation. So, you're a Marine captain? Huh, all I see is a corrupt piece of trash. Get your hands off me, you stinking fish! Nozumi managed to wiggle his mouth free of the blonde's hand. My men will shoot you if you try anything. I doubt that. Naruto gave him his infamous shark-like grin. His teeth were still cracked and missing, but he simply regrew them, causing Nozumi to urinate himself. After all, we're near my element. Focusing on the water around him, Naruto fell within himself to shape and control the water all around him. His eyes flashed once, and he struck. Water drills erupted from the pool, the various puddles he created from his fight, and even the ocean around them. Dozens upon dozens of spinning water drills impaled the Marines Nozumi brought with him. All of them died due to a single strike to the heart, leaving only the sniveling human in his hand, and the cabin boy who lucked out and fainted at the last second. Please, don't do this. It was all Arlong's idea, he bribed me. Komion, I have a family. You can't do TS to me, Nozumi begged. His plea for mercy was ignored when Naruto said, I honestly don't give a damn, and crushed his head with his hand. After dropping the lifeless body to the ground, he spat on the corpse. Scum like you deserve a special place in hell. Moving his head to the side, he looked at the villagers and saw a mixture of horror and glee plastered on their faces. What? You killed them? One of the villagers bellowed in horror. Well, what do you expect? Those assholes were going to ransack your village, steal everything of value, and more than likely murder you. Now where the hell is Arlong? Hold on, kid, let me take care of that wound. Dr. Neko reached into his medical bag and produced a roll of gauze and a bottle of disinfectant. Nah, I'm fine, Naruto dismissed the doctor before he reached into his right pouch. This isn't the first I've gotten hurt, and I got some fuck. He sharply withdrew his right hand and found his fingers dripping blood and had some small shards of glass protruding from them. His eyes widened in alarm and unclasped the pouch and emptied it onto the ground. No. Naruto couldn't believe his rotten luck. Not only were his gauze wrappings useless, but both his eternal log puzzles were destroyed. The only thing left was the pouch Hody gave him. God damn it! Arlong, you son of a bitch! He began raging and cursing at Arlong, causing several people to back away before he went on a rampage. Zoro watched in amusement when the blonde stomped over to his anchor axe and the strange sword Arlong wielded. He raised an eyebrow when he somehow managed to sheathe the giant blade on his back without a scabbard, but that didn't matter when he saw him lift that gigantic axe with ease and began to destroy the area around him. It wasn't until the blonde found the body of Arlong that he remotely calmed down. Just seeing his crushed frame, and the flagpole speared through his heart. The fisherman was dead, deader than dead, but seeing the corpse just infuriated him. Arlong, you asshole! Naruto harshly kicked the corpse, rewarding his efforts with a sickening crack of bone. You destroyed my only way to get back. How am I supposed to get home? You fucking fuck. You fucking fuck. He delivered a kick each time he swore, causing many of the women to become appalled by the vulgarity, and former sailors scratched the back of their heads in embarrassment. After finally running out of breath and getting tired of kicking the corpse, Naruto gripped the handle of his axe, lifted it overhead, and brought it down on Arlong's neck. After spitting on the body one last time, he picked up the head by its hair. "Hey, any of you jerks have a sack I could borrow?" he asked one of the villagers. It was Nojiko, her shoulder wrapped in gauze from where Nezumi shot her, who picked up the nearest sack she would find. After handing it to the tiger shark fisherman, he looked at the dismembered head as he put it into the sack and tied it around his belt. "Thank you for that, but I must be going." Naruto thanked the brunette. He turned to leave, but her hands gripped his right forearm. "You can't go, not with those wounds," she protested. "I will be fine." Naruto tried to put up a tough front, but once she poked the area he was bitten, he barely held back a wince. "See, you aren't in any kind of shape to go." "Doctor, can you get over here?" She was interrupted when Naruto jerked his arm from her grasp. "I don't need your help. I would rather die than be treated by a human." "Then why did you help us?" Genzo demanded. "You came out of the blue and destroyed our oppressors. For that we thank you, but it is clear you don't trust us, or you downright hate us. Tell me, boy, why did you do it? Isn't it obvious? I was ordered to clean up the mess my master made, and that's exactly what I did. I couldn't give a damn about you or your plight." Naruto scoffed at the policeman's stupid question. Turning his back on them again, he began his trek towards the ocean when he was once again held up. This time it was the doctor. An old man wearing a white doctor's coat with black glasses and an awesome gray mustache and goatee combo with a black bandana on his head. He gave him a stern look before opening his pouch and deposited several rolls of gauze, a bottle of disinfectant, some painkillers and antibiotics. After snapping the pouch shut, he said to him, "You may not want a human treating you, but you can treat yourself. Just think these as a thank you gift from us." "Fine. If it means that much to you." Though he didn't want to admit it, Naruto was grateful for the kind gesture. After all, that was all the medical supplies he had on him, and whatever the hell Hody gave him. He would dress his wounds later. That entire pouch was specially made to be airtight so nothing could get wet. "Hey, wait a minute!" Naruto cringed in anger at being interrupted from leaving again. "Sharkman joined my crew!" It was the Straw Hat Kid. What was he, insane? Like he would ever join a human crew? No. With his piece said, Naruto jumped into the ocean before he was interrupted again. 2 days later, Naruto unfortunately found himself completely and hopelessly lost. He came upon several small and deserted islands to take care of his wounds, but other than that he found no other signs of life anywhere. Damn that Arlong, damn his rotten soul to hell. After several more hours of swimming, Naruto saw a sign of hope, a ship. Wait, it was actually 3 ships docked on an island. Finally! He could find out where the hell he was, and if they didn't tell him what he desired, well, he could beat the crap out of them until they told him what he wanted. Emerging from the water, he was about to bellow where the hell he was, but instead he smelled blood and death. Dear God, who died here? Walking to the shore, he was greeted with the bodies of hundreds of butchered Marines. Oh shit. Covering his nose to ward off the stench, the blonde he took in the scene of carnage. The Marines were killed with a bladed weapon. No, make that weapons, and they died quickly based on the wounds slicing through the major blood vessels and major organs. It also seemed that whoever killed them was fast, unnaturally fast due to the way most of them were sprawled out in the sand. Also, their weapons were destroyed. Curious. After finding no more clues on the beach, Naruto went to the biggest ship in the area. And sure enough, he found more dead Marines with the same type of wounds, and their weapons also destroyed. Where is the captain? He has to be around here somewhere, he mused to himself. The tiger shark fisherman searched the entire ship until he found the captain's quarters. The door cleanly chopped in two, he stepped inside and found the deceased captain. However, unlike his subordinates, he was beheaded and his cutlass was cut into 6 pieces. The hell? There had to some sort of explanation. But it wouldn't be in there, the smell was killing him. After stepping outside and jumping onto the beach, the blonde headed further inland. It was a forested area, very beautiful, almost as beautiful as the underwater sea trees, and the best part was that there were no dead bodies. It was tranquil, calm even, much better than Arlong Park and the Fishman District. But when he walked further in, the peaceful tranquility began to lessen, slowly becoming replaced with anger and malice. I do not like this, Naruto said to himself. The feeling within the forest was becoming tainted with each and every step he took. Damn it all, it was starting to creep him out. You shouldn't, a quiet, monotonous voice answered him. Snapping his head towards the voice, Naruto saw a man roughly around 18 years of age. He had long, straight, sand-colored hair with pale gray eyes, his body was of slim build, and wore blue navy slacks, black shoes and a simple tan shirt. Draped over his shoulders was a blooded white Marine's jacket. Strapped to his belted hip was a Marine-issued saber, but clutched in his hands was a katana with a black scabbard. The guard was bone white with 4 crescent moons that covered the dark maroon handle, and a crimson tassel hung from the end of it that held a small ceremonial bell attached to it. And who the hell are you? Naruto demanded. The stranger stood to his full height of 5'10" and started unsheathing his katana. Then suddenly he disappeared, causing Naruto's eyes to blink in surprise, and reappeared in front of him with the tip of his blade to his throat. Your death. Son of a bitch. Listen, buddy, you don't want to do this. Naruto brought his hands up to show he meant no harm. His blue eyes looked downwards at the blade and saw that it was ebony black with a blood-red vein going through the middle of it. I'm just some guy who got lost on his way home. I don't care that you killed these asshole Marines, just leave me be and no one gets hurt. Lies, all lies. The strange teen muttered tiredly. You're nothing more than a mercenary hired by the government. They want you to kill me, but I won't let you. I can't let you. This guy is fucking loopy. Naruto thought to himself. It was obvious this guy had several screws loose, and with the bags under his eyes and the rumbling of his stomach, he guessed that whoever he was had been on the run for days, if not weeks. Listen, I don't know what your damage is, but a powerful jet of water exploded from his mouth. At point-blank range the teenager should have been obliterated, but instead he disappeared and Naruto had to roll to the side to avoid a slash from the katana in his right hand. Damn it, you asked for this. Gripping the handle of Saibanen Kayumami, he gave a powerful swing of his arm. The swordsman blocked it with his katana, but he underestimated the sheer power of the swing. He was easily lifted off the ground and slammed through one of the ships. Take that, you bastard! No one threatens Uzumaki Naruto and gets away with it. The blonde was rewarded with his advisory reappearing behind him. It took all his honed reflexes to jump out of the way to avoid getting bifurcated at the waist. Damn it all to hell, how was he doing that? There was no way a normal human could be that fast. Wait a damn second, no normal human. Son of a bitch. Swinging his axe to block against the sword, Naruto growled at the sandy-haired teen. You're a damn devil fruit user, aren't you? That is correct. I ate the quick fruit, and I won't bore you with the details, but he disappeared and soon reappeared behind the blonde. All you have to know is that I'm faster than you. And proceeded to slash at his back. Twisting his hips, Naruto barely managed to avoid getting cut and bounded away to get some breathing room. This was not good. He was facing an opponent who was as fast as sound, and he was still recovering from his injuries with Arlong and his crew to boot. However, he noticed the sandy-haired bastard sweating and barely holding himself steady. He was on his last two legs. All he had to do was keep dodging and give him one good clean hit, and it would be over. His blue eyes locking onto his pale gray-eyed opponent, he waited for any subtle movement, and when he disappeared, Naruto went on the defensive. Instead of his opponent disappearing again, the swordsman suddenly lapsed into what looked like a peaceful trance. Mirage sword style, trial of the three paths. He whispered. Moving both his right arm, Naruto saw the increase in his arm movements to the point where he could have sworn that he saw 3 arms instead of 2. Then without a moment's hesitation he sped towards the fishman. Son of a bitch! Swinging Saibanen Kayumami to try and cleave him in half, Naruto's eyes nearly sparkled when he saw the blade hit him, only for his hopes to become dashed when it simply passed through him. An afterimage? Shit! Pivoting on his right heel, the blonde lashed out with a wild kick to intercept the middle arm, only to his horror that his leg passed through his arm, and was rewarded with a deep cut to his right bicep from the real one. The hit was painful, but he was well accustomed to it. Plus his opponent was in close. With a fierce grin he dropped his axe, swiftly grabbed his sword arm, and delivered a devastating haymaker to his face. Naruto reveled in satisfaction when he heard cartilage break and blood flew from his nose as his opponent flew 10 feet from him, harshly hitting the ground. Take that, you fruity bastard! Naruto bellowed in triumph. No! What have you done? The stranger bellowed in anger. He stared at his shaking left hand that was completely covered in blood. His tongue tasted the coppery taste of the blood streaming down his nose, and he futilely tried to hold it in. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Run! Get the hell out of here! He choked on his last words before his body began to violently shake. The hell? Picking up his giant axe, Naruto felt the killing intent flowing from the swordsman. His opponent began to laugh hysterically, and then disappeared once again. Naruto barely blocked the sword strike with the head of his axe, but the marine-issued saber suddenly flew into his opponent's hand and the blade bit into his left side. The blonde gritted his teeth and punched the swordsman in the face once again, and he did it again, and one more time for good measure. Oh, those were some good hits. The swordsman gave the tiger shark a wide, twisted, insane smile. His eyes wide, and showing not a hint of sanity. Come on, fishman, I've made you bleed, and you've made me bleed, let's see who will bleed out faster. I knew something was wrong about you. Other than being a damn fruit user, you're a lunatic. Naruto swept his axe out to try and cut him in half, only for the insane teen to disappear, and reappear on the head of his axe. No, I am the lunatic. He on the other hand is weak, while I. He kicked him in the head with terrifying speed, sending him through the forest. I am the strongest. On the other side of the island, Naruto crawled out of one of the ships and spat out a mouthful of teeth. Damn it, whoever this guy was, he was stronger than he looked. He was given no time to rest when he saw his insane opponent appear in front of him, dual swords flashing. Naruto rolled away as his opponent's dual blades sliced into the ship. Gritting his broken teeth, Naruto fell deep into himself, blocking out the pain and focusing on his training in water manipulation. Soon enough water from the sea flowed around his forearms. Water sickles! He unleashed his powerful water blades at the swordsman. Even though the insane teen dodged the first two, Naruto would not let up. He continued to send barrages of water sickles at his opponent. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. Instead of wounding his opponent, he wound up damaging the ship beyond repair. Anger soon flowed through the fisherman's body. Barely 2 days ago, he killed the so-called strongest of the East Blue and his entire crew. Well, minus Hachi, he still didn't know of his fate, and a whole ship full of marines. But now he was having trouble with one devil fruit asshole? Before unleashing another water sickle with his left arm, the insane swordsman flashed in front of him, swinging the black-bladed sword. Self-preservation is what saved Naruto from getting cut in half that day. It also involuntarily activated his Sea King mode. The stranger watched with insane fascination when he saw his prey's sea blue eyes turn completely crimson, the muscles on his arms bulged and hardened, and his entire demeanor changed from prey to predator. The tiger shark fisherman's arms shot out and clamped onto the man's wrists before the blade struck. White-hot fury flowed through his veins, and taking full advantage of his natural-born strength, he easily lifted the human up over his head. With a loud primal roar, he threw his opponent over his head and slammed him onto the ground, twisting his hips. He did it again, and once again before throwing him away, and watched with smug satisfaction when he broke through the bow of the biggest ship. Naruto soon advanced forwards. He lost his axe somewhere in the other ship and brought Arlong's Kiribachi into his right hand. It felt weird to hold something other than the weapon he had been using for years, but at the moment he needed to use something to defend with in case that maniac attacked again. Once he stepped inside the ship, the blonde's senses were assaulted by death and decay. He never did investigate the lower decks of this ship, but now he knew that there was no need for it. Immediately hearing the pitter-patter of footsteps, Naruto saw the man twitching right in front of him. Stabbing his saber into the wood, he brought his left hand to the bleeding left side of his face. The crimson liquid stained his fingers and rubbed in between them. Fascinating, I haven't been bled like this since. Ever. Kudos to you, fishman, I am impressed. I told you to leave me be, Naruto responded as he regrew a new set of teeth. But now I will have to kill you. Ho ho, big words, needle dick. You're talking a big game for one who's bleeding all over the place. Keep talking, asshole. We're in an enclosed space. You won't be able to use that stupid power of yours where I triumph in close quarters combat. We will see about that. The insane swordsman's posture drastically changed. His legs bent until he was in a crouching position, and he picked his saber into his left hand. Blood sword style, rain crimson. Holding the blades of both swords behind him, the madman charged at Naruto, swinging both swords up. The katana went for the neck while the saber went for his right wrist. Fortunately for Naruto, he swung Kiribachi to deflect the attack before going on the offensive. Letting out an angry growl, he recklessly swung the giant sword, but the insane bastard just leaped away, back-flipping and generally laughing. Damn it, he was just like those acrobats that entertained the royal family every year. He used to think that was pretty cool, but now he hated it. And that laughter. That mocking, insane laughter was only aggravating his already pissed-off mood, and with him in Sea King mode, it was amplifying it twofold. His years of harsh training and discipline were slowly going down the tube as his strikes missed again and again. Instead of hitting his opponent, Naruto destroyed the various barrels and crates, and most critically the support beams. He struck one more as the insane swordsman leaped out of the way, and then the whole ceiling started coming down on them. Immediately the two fighters disengaged, dodging the falling debris and leaping out through the holes in the ceiling. Once they got topside, the two immediately went at it again. The sound of steel clashing against steel echoed for what seemed like hours as the two fighters continued to try and kill each other. Blocking the two swords with Kiribachi, Naruto used his massive strength to lift his opponent's arms over his head, and then kneed him right in the stomach, sending him soaring into, and through, the captain's doors. He emerged several seconds later, his eyes burning with intense anger. God fucking damn it! Why aren't you dead yet? He screamed in frustration. No matter how many times I cut you, you won't bleed out like the other pieces of trash strewn on the beach. Fuck you! Fucking die already! It will take much more than a few shallow cuts to kill me. Seriously, look at them. Naruto brought his right arm out, showing dozens of cuts, but unlike the few inflicted on him earlier, These ones were extremely shallow, not even deep enough to draw blood. Not surprised though, you're running on fumes by now. He dropped the giant sword and manipulated the water to flow around his arms until they formed the shape of megalodon heads. I'll kill you with this next attack. Ha! I will kill you first, fishman. Blood sword style, the two sprinted at each other, calling out their attacks. Devouring twin shark fist. 8 ways to die. Before the final blows were struck, a sharp whistling sound pierced the air, forcing the two combatants to jump away from each other before a cannonball impacted where they would have clashed. Both blondes blinked in confusion before turning towards the source of the deadly projectile. And to their surprise, it was a ship, a freaking huge marine ship with dozens of cannons lined up at them. A marine captain, a giant muscular man with bulldog-like jowls on his ugly face, stood to face them barely 100 yards away. In his hand was a megaphone that seemed quite puny in his meaty hands. Blood-soaked Kotetsu and companion, you both are under arrest. Companion? This asshole? Naruto's eyes turned back to their original blue once due to the interruption. Ah, Captain Stark of Unit 13. It's extremely unlucky of you to face me, but then again, you were always the unlucky one. The swordsman revealed as Kotetsu spoke in glee. Such insolence, men ready cannons. Stark raised his right arm and the sound of a dozen cannons pointed at the two. Well, this is going to suck, Naruto drawled out. Man, I know this sounds a little odd, but I will temporarily team up with you fishman. But make no mistake, I'm only doing it to kill those marines. My blade hungers for their blood. Very well then. Fire! When the cannons roared, the two warriors burst into action. Kotetsu jumped from the ruined ship he was on, and then disappeared in thin air, while Naruto dived into the sea. Landing on the deck, Kotetsu crouched low and lashed out with his two blades. In the 1 second after he landed, 4 marines' throats erupted in a shower of gore, and seeing their comrades fall onto the deck dead as a doorknob, several marines turned towards the mad swordsman, firing their flintlock muskets. His insane smile widening, Kotetsu easily vanished, causing the marines to accidentally shoot each other. It was then the slim teen started his attack. His swords flashed out, cutting into the necks of 2 marines. Spinning on his right heel, he intercepted the sabers of 3 marines with his own and then slashed out with his black katana. He watched with ecstasy as the black blade sliced into the chests of his victims, further weighing his face with their blood. Then, without any sort of warning, Kotetsu jumped into the air, twisted his slim body midair and spun, turning his swords into spinning blades of death, slicing into the necks of several men before landing on his 2 feet. Blood sword style, rain crimson. Holding the blades of both swords behind him, the man charged at his opponents, swinging both swords up, and laughed as his katana and the saber sliced open necks and wrists. While Kotetsu was having his fun spilling marine blood, Naruto was deep underwater in the process of unleashing a ship-killing attack. Hody ordered him to create such an attack when the time came for him to destroy any type of ship that dared to threaten their home. The technique was solid after hundreds of hours of water manipulation practices to create it, but there was one problem. He never actually hit a ship with it. Falling into himself, Naruto concentrated on the flow of the water, forming and twisting it to his will. Once he was certain that he was in full control of his technique, the blonde brought his arms out to his sides and started rotating. Immediately the water started to solidify, turning into a tornado around his body, and then spiraled upwards towards the ship. Up on the ship, Kotetsu sliced the neck of another marine, blocked a rifle butt to the head, cut the offending marine's belly open and kicked him away into a group of sailors before facing Captain Stark with about 50 men behind him with rifles aimed at him. What was that? 50? 59? Honestly, I've lost count of how many men your unlucky unit has lost. Shut up, you filthy criminal! Stark bellowed, wagging his head so his jowls flapped against his neck. You will pay for the Iron Island massacre, and the deaths of Units 23, 30, and 12. And now Unit 13. Over my dead body. It was a second later that Stark regretted that last sentence. Because the wooden deck below him burst into splinters, turning him and his men into nothing but shredded meat. Kotetsu looked on in intense fascination as a water typhoon rose out of the ship in the resemblance of a gigantic spear tip, tearing everything asunder. Fucking awesome. I like you, fish guy. Kotetsu laughed in glee. But that was until the bow of the ship plunged into the sea, taking him along with it. Oh, fish guy, you're a fucking asshole. The foul-mouthed man would have gladly finished his sentence, but sea water engulfing a devil fruit user would stop and immobilize them. Go my head. Well, glad you're awake, asshole. Naruto greeted the bound swordsman, and then he promptly threw a bucket of salt water on his already soaked body. Good, we need to have a chat. Why did you throw a bucket of water on me? To prevent you from using your fruity powers. That only works if I'm partially or completely submerged in water. Spraying me doesn't work at all. Shit, Naruto's sweat dropped. Well, at least I have ropes to restrain you. Right. Alright, well, I guess you want to know what the hell is going on here. Among other things. Now spill it, or you won't like me during this chat. Shrugging helplessly, Kotetsu jerked his head to the right in order to get his hair out of his eyes. Alright, what do you want to know, fishman? First off, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, remember it, human. Now here is your first question. Why in the vast seas are the Marines after you? Well, first off to you, my name isn't human. I am Mirage Kotetsu, ensign of Unit 23 under the direct command of Vice Admiral Doberman. He stopped after revealing his information and lowered his head. Well, that's what I used to be until I killed them all. Killed them all? Naruto leaned forwards and looked into the sandy-haired teen's eyes. When I first fought you, you were dead on your feet and skittish. But after I busted your nose, you went bats hit crazy and started talking in a high-pitched voice, and your fighting style drastically changed. Care to explain that? Well, Also, Naruto slid his two swords towards him, and indicated the katana now in its black scabbard. This is a pretty freaky-looking sword of yours. Now I've seen plenty of swords in my days, but this. It feels wrong. You touched my sword. Don't ever touch that katana. Kotetsu hysterically screamed. Wow, easy there, psycho. What's so special about that damn thing? That sword is what caused me to become what I am. What emerged from me. Flashback. The Grand Line, one of the most treacherous places in the world. The Grand Line was divided by the Red Line into two halves. The first half, stretching from Reverse Mountain to the polar opposite point of the Red Line, was known as Paradise. It was kind of ironic that it was called that due to all the immense dangers of the sea, and mankind alike. The second half, however, started beyond the second Red Line point to the backside of Reverse Mountain. This was known as the New World. Not much was known about it, except the terrifying accounts of deadly seas, unspeakable sea monsters, and the most terrifying pirates in the entire world. It was in the Paradise half that a 15-year-old Mirage Kotetsu of Unit 23 was scouting out the island his unit landed on the orders of Vice Admiral Doberman. He had been to several different islands in his time as a Marine, but they were modernized, but this Iron Island, man, it was different. For nearly a half an hour landing on the snowy rooftops of tiled buildings, he looked at the various buildings. They were made completely out of bamboo, wood, and tile. While they looked primitive to some people, he found them enticing. Hell, he thought they were comfy looking. And the people, they were dressed in heavy wool kimonos, or in gray heavy plate armor along with demonic-looking helmets and face masks and surprisingly 4 swords on their hips. But what he enjoyed the most were the Three Wolves Mountains, which actually looked like a single mountain that was naturally shaped over the centuries. It was as majestic as it was fierce-looking. I believe I have all I need, he said to himself before turning towards where his ship landed and then disappeared. Landing on a roof near his ship, he carefully jumped down and headed towards the ship. It didn't take long to tell his captain what he found, but then again there wasn't much to report. The people seemed friendly enough, the buildings were simple, and it was cold as hell. After he was dismissed, the sandy-haired teen passed by the slop hall, as the Marines called it. It was around lunchtime, and old Daggery should have served up whatever healthy food by now. That Kotetsu is a pompous daddy's boy. An angry voice stung his ears. What the hell? How old is he? 15. And already an ensign. That little bastard joined 6 months ago as a seaman recruit, and after he begged Vice Admiral, the sound of a fist hitting against flesh, and the sound of a chair and a body falling to the floor echoed down the hall. Shut that damn mouth of yours, Ben, another voice echoed down the hall. I know you don't like the boy, but there is no need to spread lies about his status. Bah! Well, how did he become an ensign, while I, a Marine veteran of 15 years, am a mere chief petty officer? Well, other than the fact you're corrupt and lazy, a third voice said. You never slew one of the most terrifying pirate captains of the Grand Line. And you're telling me that boy did that? Bullshit. Really, you didn't hear about this? Before he was transferred here, Kotetsu was with the 40th Unit, and from the reports they encountered the Moon Pirates. Bullshit. A sixth voice bellowed in surprise. The freaking Moon Pirates? You're telling me that they took them on, and survived? Well, duh, or else he wouldn't be here. The second voice deadpanned. The 40th Unit engaged them, and? Well, it was a slaughter on both sides. They fought for hours, bodies piling on the decks, falling into the sea. It wasn't until that boy killed the butcher of Bayou Island, Morgan Moonscar McWright, did the battle finally end. He killed Morgan Moonscar? Ben gasped in surprise. Wasn't he worth 100 million belly? Yeah, and from eyewitness accounts he used his devil fruit powers to distract both him and his crew for a long while. He saved many Marines, but despite his valiant efforts many still died that day. Now this is where the story gets fuzzy. Now I heard that old Moonscar blew his best friend's brains out. And soaked his entire face in his blood and brain matter. And then he suddenly went all loco, screamed louder than any of the wounded men on that day. And then proceeded to assault Morgan Moon's car with both his sabers. He cut the guy up something fierce. I mean, he disappeared, leaving mirages and shit and slicing into his skin. The cuts were deep, but they weren't fatal. I think he wanted to inflict the most pain on the pirate captain. It wasn't until he sapped the man of all strength did disappear one last time and stabbed him through both lungs and let him suffocate to death. Was that what promoted him to the rank of ensign? The fourth voice asked. What do you think? Shaking his head to shake the memories of that day, Kotetsu quickly activated his devil fruit power and quickly disappeared from the spot he was standing, his appetite long since destroyed. You look troubled, boy, an old, enlightened voice broke the young man out of his stupor several hours later. Looking up from his resting place from outside a small restaurant, Kotetsu was greeted with the sight of an elderly man. He had long, gray hair, which almost reached down to his waist, with bandages wrapped around his head. He had black eyes with distinct wrinkles underneath them, a gray goatee and mustache. Clothing-wise, he wore a purple kimono-like outfit and sandals with a katana strapped to his waist. What makes you say that? He tiredly asked. Well, for one, you have several inches of snow piled on your shoulders without a jacket, stupid. The old man shot his right arm out faster than Kotetsu would expect from a man his age, and grabbed him by the ear, and pulling him from the bench he sat on. And two, that captain of yours has been looking for you, and he asked me to help look for you after that meeting of ours. Gah! All right. Slapping the offending hand away from his ear, Kotetsu proceeded to rub it in a futile attempt to soothe it. Grandfather, don't pick on the sailor, a tiny female's voice admonished the old man. Turning his head towards the sliding door of the restaurant, the ensign saw a shoulder-length chestnut-haired and eyed girl around 10 years of age in a gray kimono fuming at them. You're late enough already. Get in here or I'll give your share to the dog. Kotetsu's sweat dropped and turned towards the elderly man, who took it all in with a serene smile on his face. AI, tell your mother to set an extra plate. We have to be gracious to our guests. Guests? Both Kotetsu and AI questioned simultaneously. Of course, we can't send this young man away with an empty stomach. And on Kotetsu's stomach let out an angry growl, causing the elderly man to let out a quiet chuckle. Fine, just hurry up, okay? AI rolled her eyes before closing the sliding door. Why would you? I can't let a fellow swordsman go hungry and die in the cold. The old man patted the teenager on the back and began walking him into the restaurant, or what Kotetsu suspected was his home as well. And while we are at it, we can get to figuring out what has brought that cloud over your head. 2 hours later, his belly full of delicious food and his body warmed from the cold, Kotetsu mused over what he learned in that short amount of time. The elderly man who invited to dinner was Mifune, the leader of Iron Island, a man who lived by the way of the sword. His daughter was a meek woman named Taka, who by his stomach-satisfied state was the best damn chief on the island. And let's not forget the brash girl who yelled at them. She was Mifune's granddaughter and an exact carbon copy of her mother. During dinner, Kotetsu learned firsthand from the island's leader that he met with his captain to re-establish their trading route with the Marines. They were allowed to use the village as a resting area for ships passing through, but only if the ship, or ships carried invaluable supplies. But they also asked for permission to bring in the bigger ships for the good stuff and prisoner transport. They agreed, but in exchange, Mifune demanded that his island be left alone for another 100 years, just like it had always been since the beginnings of the world government over 800 years ago. From what Kotetsu remembered about Iron Island's history, it was always a neutral island, and every 100 years the government always asked them for one favor, and they were not bothered again. So it's bigger ships and prisoners now, Kotetsu commented. Forgive my boldness, but what else do you have to offer when another century rolls on by? There can't be much left after nearly 800 years. Immediately after he said that, he felt AI trying to burn a hole into his skull with her eyes. That was quickly extinguished by Mifune. You are right, we don't have much left to offer. The first time around we gave them our ore, the second, we forged them katanas for their admirals, the third, trade routes. And much more, I take it? Kotetsu asked. Aye, but now is not the time to discuss such matters. What I want to talk about is the reason you were sitting on the bench in front of my family's home. I don't wish to discuss it. None of you would want to hear what I have to say. Nonsense, Taka's quiet voice spoke up for the first time. Kotetsu, sometimes discussing something, even if it is with complete strangers, can help cleanse the soul of the guilt that has been burdening you. A sweat drop appeared on the back of the young Marine's head. Is it that obvious? Even I can see it, AI coolly remarked. Dang. All right, taking several steady breaths, Kotetsu spoke for the first time, fully recalling the day he took his first life. 4 months ago I was a seaman recruit, just barely having 2 months of active duty under my belt before I was assigned to Unit 40 under Vice Admiral. His name really does not matter, trust me on this, okay? We were sent to capture or kill Captain Morgan Moonscar McWright due to him butchering an entire island full of civilians. My unit found him after a month or hard searching. We attacked them after giving them a chance to surrender. We had 5 ships under our command, he had 4, and we left with only 1 after the job was done and over with. 1 ship? AI covered her mouth, absolutely shocked at the massive loss of life. My ship, to be precise, and even then we only came back with 300 out of the original 500. Kotetsu became silent, a haunting look appearing in his pale gray eyes. I participated in the battle. I didn't kill anyone in the early of middle phases of the battle, I either disarmed them or wounded them enough to be out of the fight. I just couldn't kill any of them. I did my best to save the men in my unit as well. But Morgan was a cunning one. He sank our ships, butchered them men and women, and laughed while he did it. And after he sunk the 4 ships, he attacked mine. He and his men butchered my friends by the dozen. Morgan attacked the Vice Admiral in command, and they both fought it out with overwhelming power. The Vice Admiral had Moonscar on the ropes before he pulled a lucky move by kicking him away into the sea. From then he continued to butcher us. Kotetsu stopped his story and closed his eyes tightly to fight off any tears. He shot Jean, my best friend, right in front of me. His blood coated my entire face and I saw red. I snapped, and I tortured him. Using my devil fruit powers, I disappeared behind him and sliced his shoulder, disappeared and sliced the side of his left thigh. After that I don't remember anything, but the survivors said that I cut into his arms, slashed his belly, and finally when the once mighty pirate fell to his knees. Kotetsu suddenly thrust both his arms out, his eyes shining from the thought. I slipped my blades through his ribcage, both his lungs, right until the guard was buried in him, and he blades poking out through his back. And I watched as he struggled to breathe until he died in the most painful way possible. Soon after he said that, the light from his eyes disappeared, and his body started shaking. But after that, I haven't felt like my old self since then. I still have nightmares seeing Morgan's cruel face mocking me when he killed Jean. But most importantly, I'm afraid to use my swords. Every time I clean them, I still see the blood on them, and I still feel the blood on my face. Kotetsu clutched the edge of the table, and the family could hear the slight crackling of wood. I can't talk to my family about this, especially my father, nor can I discuss this with my current crew. I just don't know what to do. Well, that is no good, Mifune immediately said after the young man's heartfelt confession. He saw in the boy's eyes that he was in so much inner pain, and so much conflict on that it was destroying what he could achieve in life. I can see the potential in you, boy. But that fear holds you back. I know, but it is not the fact that you took a man's life. You did the world a great service in killing that monster. What you fear is that your skills aren't good enough to protect the ones you love. That is what I see when I look at you. But how will I become strong enough to protect them? I fear that I have reached my limit. Then I will make you limitless. Nearly 3 years later, Mifune was still keeping his promise. Because his entire unit was stationed at Iron Island's shores, Kotetsu was fortunate enough to visit Mifune and his family on a daily basis. And after 3 years they became almost like a second family to him. Taka treated him affectionately like a mother would. Mifune was easily the grandfather figure, and even AI, after nearly a year of giving him the cold shoulder, managed to warm up to him. But that wasn't the only thing that went on in his life. Every single day, Mifune taught him how to face his fears, how to conquer them, and taught him the way of the sword. Whatever mistakes Kotetsu made was corrected by pain with a wooden stick striking the body part he messed up with. Afterwards he was taught to meditate to clear his mind, learn from his mistakes, and mentally improve on his failures. His weaknesses soon became his strengths. His strength and speed doubled, if not tripled, under his tutelage. But not all was sunshine and rainbows. Even though his training showed the fruits of his labor, his captain and his crewmates looked at him with indifference and scorn. Even the captain, who was a friend to him, began to either ignore or load him down with an overwhelming amount of work that sometimes stopped his training completely for days at a time. It wasn't until the captain finally brought him into his quarters did the young swordsman learn the awful truth. I take that you wish to know why the entire crew has been treating you differently? The captain coldly asked. Quite frankly, Captain, I am. What have I done to warrant this? Kotetsu responded. I have done everything you ask of me. I have not slacked from the duties of my rank. Is this because of my lessons with the leader of the island? It is. What are you thinking, boy? He demanded. I feared that I was reaching my peak in my skills, Captain. The young Marine answered, no disrespect intended, but their methods have helped me greatly. I know I have gotten stronger, faster, and I do not care. You're fraternizing with the enemy. The enemy, sir? Kotetsu gulped a bit, and tried to ignore the uneasiness in his stomach. Do you know why the world government allowed these people to stay neutral all these years? Because of all the deals? Because they have hidden something from us. Something that the government has been trying to find and destroy since their creation. What? The captain's words were not making any sense. If you're talking about weapons, all they have are katanas, and they're not even in the skillful, great, or grand sword categories. At least none that I know of. That's where you're wrong. After nearly 2 decades we finally found proof that they have one of the deadliest swords ever created. Captain, that can't be. The deadliest swords that I know of is the Yoru, Knight, wielded by Hawkeye's Mihawk, and the… Oh god, no. Kotetsu had to fight the urge to vomit at the mere thought. The Kotetsu Blades, boy. They have one hidden on that very island, the captain said. But that still doesn't explain why the government has left them alone since the beginning. That can't be the only reason either, Kotetsu protested, trying to find any sort of reasoning for this. I don't care, boy. We found what we needed, and now we will take it. The captain grinned. Now go tell the village leader that we know his secret. Go to him, and tell him that we are going to get it one way or another. Gulping down another bow that nearly made its way to his mouth, Kotetsu saluted his captain and disappeared. Once the ensign left his room, the captain pulled out a den mushi from his naval jacket and spoke to it. Execute Operation Iron Fist. And that's what they plan on doing, Master Mifune. Kotetsu finished relaying the message his captain gave him. I see. Mifune rose from his sitting position. I knew that sword would cause trouble for us one day. I guess that time has come, and now we must fight. Master, I know it is not my place to say this. But why not just hand it over and save yourself the trouble? Because we have to keep that cursed sword out of the hands of government. Mifune growled out. Do not believe in the lies your superiors have been telling you. Tell me, boy, what do you know about the various blades that have been crafted throughout the world? Only that some of them are in the hands of Marines and pirates. Kotetsu truthfully answered him. Well, the Marines have been hoarding them all ever since Kotetsu created those 3 swords of his centuries ago. The elderly leader said before walking out of the room. Kotetsu followed him to a room that held 2 sets of armor. One being the heavy gray plate armor, another being a more traditional set of green and gray armor. A person does not choose their sword, the sword chooses its owner. Mifune continued to speak as he began to strap on the green armor. What they are doing is destroying bonds between sword and owner. A bond between sword and owner? Kotetsu asked. You will find out what I mean soon, my apprentice. The village leader cryptically responded as he strapped his shin guards on. And when you do, you will never be the same ever again. The world moves a little slower, you will see and feel things that you never dreamed of. It is a great burden as it is an accomplishment. I see, the sandy-haired teen lowered his head. So this is it then? I may be forced to. I know, and I hope to meet you on the battlefield, young one. Mifune's black eyes gazed into his student's gray ones. I was fun teaching you, Kotetsu. Fight well on the battlefield. Upon hearing his teacher say his name for the first time, Kotetsu felt like he was torn in half. One part of his was screaming that this was wrong. This was the man who took him under his wing and brought him to his full potential. He didn't want to fight him, let alone kill him. But then again, he was a Marine. His family's entire history revolved around it. His forefathers were Marines, his father was a damn vice admiral, and his little brother was prepping to join up as well. But before he could even speak, a volley of gunshots broke the silence of the quiet village. Then the screaming began. The 2 swordsmen quickly bolted out of the house and were greeted to a nightmare. In the streets they saw bodies of men, women, and children lying in the streets from gunshot wounds. Kotetsu immediately lost his lunch at the sight of the carnage. Get down! Mifune tackled the teenager to the ground, saving him from being hit by a volley of bullets from across the street. Despite being ancient by human standards, the old man immediately got to his feet and sprinted towards the building. Aido! Mifune shouted as he unsheathed his sword. The pressure from the swing impacted the wall of the wooden and bamboo house, cutting it clean in half, and collapsing it on itself, killing any Marines within it. Lying flat on his stomach, Kotetsu stared in shock at how easily that in one swing of his sword his teacher managed to devastate an entire building. So this was the full power of a master swordsman. Amazing, simply amazing. But then he saw the massacre and weakly stood up. He couldn't believe this. These people were unarmed, several of them were no more than tea makers. He saw the horrid look in Mifune's eyes and knew that this was unjust. Master Mifune! He called out to the old man, and when the master swordsman turned his attention towards him, Kotetsu unsheathed his sabers. This needs to be stopped. Good answer, Kotetsu. Wait. Naruto interrupted Kotetsu's story. So you're telling me that all this started because of a damn sword? That is correct. See, the katana was created by a mad swordsman by the name of Kotetsu. He was a mad swordsmith who created 3 katanas in his lifetime. They are cursed, and bring tragedy to whomever wields them, and they have killed hundreds of owners since they have been created. Kotetsu responded. So, which one do you have? Let me continue the story, and then you will know. Fine. Jackass. For 3 long days the men and women of Iron Island defended their home from the invading Marines of Unit 23. For Kotetsu, he was surprised that they even held out for this long. The samurai of the island didn't have any sort of firearm or heavy artillery. They mainly relied on their katanas, yumi bows and arrows, and some even wielded kanabo war club or the naginata. There were even 1 or 2 who used the yari spear. But despite their valiant efforts, the residents suffered heavy casualties from gunfire. Morale was declining, civilians were getting caught in the crossfire. Helm Mifune already lost his daughter when a group of Marines caught and executed her in front of them. Soon afterwards the village was lost. On the 2nd day they lost the forest. And now the survivors were held up in the 3 Wolves Mountains. But even with all of that, Kotetsu still found himself unwilling to kill his former comrades. Oh, he wounded them, gave them crippling injuries, and even took away an arm or leg. But they just kept coming like machines. Mifune saw this, and knew that if he was not going to be of any use on the battlefield, so he stuck the sandy-haired teen with the civilians to keep them safe. For Kotetsu, it was the best solution, so he was guarding nearly 40 people, most of them being wounded civilians and samurai, including a 13-year-old AI, who was still grieving the loss of her mother. He didn't know what to say to her. How could he? He was part of the reason that her life was turned upside down. If they all managed to survive this assault, nothing would ever be the same again. Unfortunately for him, anything that could have been said was interrupted when a cannonball blew through the stone walls of the mountain. What the? Everyone get down! Leaping to his feet, Kotetsu viewed through the hole of the wall and saw 3 giant ships docked in the port. Son of a bitch. It's Unit 30. Unit 30? Kotetsu, are they worse than your unit? AI timidly asked. If they're like Vice Admiral Enigmo, then yes. Ugh, his units are heavy hitters. We aren't going to get out of here alive, are we? She asked. I do not know, AI. Another cannonball burst through the mountain, striking helpless samurai and civilian alike with deadly shrapnel. I honestly do not know. If we are to go down, we will make sure that they never get the Nidai Kitetsu, 2nd-generation demon splitter. Mifune joined their conversation as he entered the room. From the look of his broken and dirty armor, the elderly man had been in the middle of dozens of small battles since the invasion began. He was flanked by 2 samurai, both wearing heavy gray plate armor with full-face helmets with horns atop their heads. Another cannonball broke through the stone walls. Thankfully no one was harmed this time. But where will you go, master? All the ports have been captured, your ships destroyed. I can't see you 2 escaping. Because we can't escape. The elderly man replied tiredly, his voice sounding tired and old. But we will destroy the sword. This time a volley of cannonballs burst through the mountain walls, killing and maiming the last of the survivors, and causing Kotetsu to lose whatever he had left in his stomach. Come. Grabbing both their arms, Mifune barked at 2 samurai, one with a yumi bow and another with a naginata. You 2 follow me now. We have to get to the 3rd wolf head. Yes, Lord Mifune. They both sounded out as they followed their elderly leader. The 5 escaped from the doomed first head, leaving behind nothing but dead bodies. Kotetsu felt disgusted and horrified at the innocent lives lost to something so pointless. Damn them all. I will kill them all. He angrily growled. Big talk for one who did nothing but wound his former comrades. The samurai with the yumi bow dryly commented. Knock it off, Okisuk, Mifune demanded. Keep focused, we can't allow ga. The sound of gunfire erupted from behind them, and the old man flew forwards, landing on the ground clutching his bleeding left shoulder. Bastards! Okisuk yelled angrily. Spinning on his right heel, the samurai fluidly drew his bow, knocked an arrow, and let it loose. Striking a marine right in the eye with the arrow, he brought his right arm up and retrieved another arrow. Come on, my lord, up and at him. The second, bigger samurai easily shouldered his village leader. Thank you, Yurakaku. Mifune thanked the other samurai through clenched teeth. Okisuk, hurry up. After letting loose another arrow, Okisuk nodded and followed his lord until they reached the rope bridge leading towards the 2nd wolf head. The 5 were halfway across the bridge when a group of 30 Marines finally caught up to them. 10 of them raised their flintlock muskets and fired at the retreating group. 7 shots missed them completely, but 2 hit their mark with Okisuk, who was at the back of the retreating group. 1 bullet ripped through his stomach, and another hit him in the back of his right leg, and the last one hit the back of his helmet. It didn't penetrate, but it did cause it to fly from his head. The samurai collapsed with a painful grunt. It was Kotetsu who noticed that he went down. Even though he was exhausted from the lack of food and sleep, He activated his devil fruit powers and disappeared to where Okisuke fell. Grabbing him, he disappeared back to the group, grabbed them all and disappeared until they were clear on the other side of the bridge. Plopping behind cover, Kotetsu collapsed to the ground exhausted, but that didn't stop him from turning towards Okisuke, who was clutching his belly. Oh God, the bullet went right through the liver. I know, Okisuke grunted. Looking up at him, he revealed himself to be a bald man with violet-colored, pupilless eyes, with a cross-shaped scar that extended across his forehead and descended downward past his permanently closed right eye, whereas a green dragon tattoo was inscribed above his left. Just go, save Lord Mifune, I will hold them off as long as I can. Mifune, Ai, and Urakaku lowered their heads to hide the anguished looks on their faces. Okisuke was one of the loyalist men that served Mifune since he could wield a sword. It was tragic to see him like that. Give them hell, son. I will, my lord. Okisuke nodded toward them. And once they were out of his sight, he sighed deeply and got to his feet. Grabbing his bow, he knocked an arrow, drew the string back to his cheek, and let it loose. The arrow impacted into the chest of a marine, and he toppled off the cliff. For 3 minutes the group of marines shot at the wounded samurai. Bullets impacted off the rock he was taking cover behind, but every one of Okisuke's arrows were true. Each hit was instantly fatal. Arrows protruded through the marines' throats, eyes, and hearts. Letting loose another arrow, Okisuke brought his arm back to get another arrow from his quiver. But to his horror, he felt nothing. He was completely out of arrows. Dropping the bow, Okisuke took a deep breath. So this was the day he was going to die. It was strange. He thought he would fear death when his time came. Instead it felt refreshing. Unsheathing his katana into his right hand, and his wakizashi into his left, the wounded samurai let out a ferocious roar that would make an alpha lion look like a timid creature, and charged at the oncoming marines. Ignoring the pain in his leg, the blood gushing out of his stomach and the bullets impacting into his armor, the proud samurai charged on. Bullets ricocheted from his armor, some passed right through him. He was a dead man walking, but he didn't care. All he wanted to do was take as many of these bastards with him when he died. Okisuke reached the end of the bridge, and lashed out with his swords. The deadly steel sliced through the bodies of 5 marines, and he would have taken more if Ben, the marine who bad-mouthed Kotetsu nearly 3 years prior. He raised his flintlock pistol from behind the samurai's turned back, and shot him in the back of the head. Even though he cut down at least half the marines coming at him, Okisuke died with a serene smile on his face. It was a shame that 100 more marines were charging up the slopes of the mountain. Damn it. Just damn it. Kotetsu growled under his breath. He died the way he wanted. Even though it was true, Mifune's voice was filled with regret and sadness. Come, if we don't hurry, his sacrifice will be in vain. Once they reached the bottom of the second wolf head, the small group were met with an unpleasant surprise that dropped in front of them. Grenados, watch out! Kotetsu screamed. Grabbing Ai, the young swordsman forcefully called upon his exhausted powers and disappeared towards the entrance. Urakaku and Mifune, however, were not so lucky, but the big samurai was one step ahead as he pivoted on his heel, dropped his header into his burly arms, and brought his back to the 4 grenados. The fuses on the 4 clay balls quickly fizzled into the top and exploded. The shrapnel impacted against Urakaku's armor. Various nails, or scrap metal, pierced through the already damaged armor. The Naginata-wielding man gasped out in pain when he felt the hot shrapnel pierced into his back, and tore up his insides. My lord, Urakaku wetly gasped out, are you okay? He hacked into his helmet, creating a sickly splattering sound within it. I'm a little scratched up, but fine. Thank you, Urakaku, let me get that helmet off. Getting a hold of his trembling nerves, Mifune brought his hands to his second right-hand man's helmeted face, and pulled it off to reveal a middle-aged man with black hair tied into a traditional chonmage and very thick eyebrows with similarly colored eyes. The only distinguishing features he had were a bulbous nose and a prominent scar located just above his right eyebrow. Wiping the blood away from his mouth, Urakaku bowed his head towards the man who trained both him and Okisuke since they were little. Master, it is my time, he said to him. I will meet you in the afterlife, my student. May we forever spar in the promised land. Giving the dying man a final pat on the shoulder, Mifune left him to his fate. And when the marines arrived 3 minutes later, the entrance leading towards the 3rd wolf head was blocked by the large samurai. Gripping his naginata, he rushed forward with great speed that should not have been possible in his condition. Swinging the bladed staff weapon, Urakaku sliced, taking off part of the skull of one unfortunate marine, exposing the brain. He slashed through the face and jaw and slicing off another, slicing the lower part of the jawbone off in an instant. He then thrusted forward, impaling 4 marines through their hearts. The haft of the weapon was then sliced off by the saber of another marine, who was then stabbed through the neck by the splintered wood by the enraged samurai. I don't need a weapon to kill you. I am a weapon. Lunging forward, Urakaku began tearing into the ranks of opposing enemies with his bare hands. He tore through throats, crushed skulls, broke necks, and pulled arms off. But at the same time he took many attacks to his exposed torso, dozens of sabers protruded from his body, but self-preservation, his spirit already left his body. Yet his consciousness continued to urge him to give his teacher a little more time. But then Ben put an end to that by lifting his flintlock pistol and shooting his oncoming body right in the head. Just 3 more left. He smirked in self-satisfaction. As Urakaku's last stand came to an end, Mifune, Kotetsu, and AI finally got to their destination, where the object that caused all this destruction and pain. It was a katana propped up on a simple display stand with a black scabbard. The guard was bone white with 4 crescent moons that covered the dark maroon handle, and a crimson tassel hung from the end of it that held a small ceremonial bell attached to it. Mifune glared at the weapon and unsheathed his own katana. The steel blade was fairly long and thin, the handguard was rectangular in shape, and its long hilt was wrapped in bandages. This sword was Kurosawa, Black Swamp. The only sword other than Nidai Kitetsu was one of the 21 swords in the Great Grand Sword category. Master Mifune, will Kurosawa be able to destroy that cursed sword? Kotetsu questioned. We will see. Raising the sword above his head, Mifune was about to unleash the Aido to destroy the thing once and for all. But instead he turned around and unleashed the pressurized swing at the entrance, obliterating several Marines aiming their rifles from the entrance. Ha ha! You're out of steam, old man. A cruel, mocking voice echoed from the entrance. Walking inwards, Ben revealed himself. Kotetsu would never forget the face of a monster in human skin. Ben was taller than the average human. He was muscular, as he was obese. Clutched in his hands were 2 double-barreled flintlock pistols, and a smile marred his bald, mutton-chopped face as his black eyes glinted with cruelty. Ben, Kotetsu gritted out. I should have known you would lead the charge on this insanity. And you would be right, Ensign. Ben spat out the rank like it was poison. Tell me, why? All this. This senseless slaughter, why do they want this sword? It's supposed to be a cursed blade. Ha! You really think it's just about a stupid sword? Oh boy, you are so naive. It's not just about the sword, it's about the entire island itself. What? Mifune and AI demanded. Your ancestors foolishly declared yourselves neutral. Back then the world government didn't care, but now. Well, we can't have that now, can we? There will not be any neutrality, and your island will be made an example of. An official report then. Kotetsu concluded as he put the pieces together. An insurrection, you bastards. Smart pretty boy. Ben casually raised his right arm and shot the exhausted teen in the side, causing him to cry out in pain as the blood started leaking out. Don't worry, the official report will have you killed in action by these savages. Daddy dearest would be proud. Not on my watch. Ignoring both Kotetsu and AI's cries, the wounded village leader burst forward. He let out a loud cry of defiance as he gripped Kurosawa's hilt with both his hands. Mifune was met with a hail of gunfire from 30-plus Marines, turning his entire body into nothing but a torn-up corpse. His defiant eyes still open, the village lead fell to his knees, his hands dropping his katana onto the stone floor with a loud clatter, and fell to his side dead to the world. Ha ha! And now I killed the leader of the uprising. I am going to get a huge promotion for this. Ben pumped his fist in triumph. Oh, this was his lucky day. Then, settling his eyes on the final 2, he dropped the pistol from his right hand, took one from one of the Marines who was reloading his rifle, and strolled over to them. Despite the pain in his right side, Kotetsu stood up on his wobbly legs. Breathing through clenched teeth, he unsheathed one of his sabers into his right hand, which was cruelly shot at by the pistol Ben took from his colleague. The iron musket ball hit the area where the steel was fused with the hilt, snapping the blade in 2, causing the young Marine to fall to his knee. Dropping the gun, Ben raised his remaining pistol and pulled back one of the hammers. Leveling it at Kotetsu's heart, he was about to pull the trigger when AI got in the way. Get out of the way, girl, I will get to you after him. The ugly Marine growled. Despite the tears falling from her eyes, the pain of seeing her last loved one die, AI was not afraid of him. What did she have to lose after all? I don't know what my grandfather saw in him. But I will not allow you to kill him. If want him, you will have to go through me. AI, don't do this. Kotetsu gritted through clenched teeth. Don't waste your life on me. No, Kotetsu, your life will not end this day. AI calmly closed her eyes and her entire body relaxed, almost like she was at peace with her decision. With a cruel smile, Ben aimed his pistol at her head and pulled the trigger. AI's lifeless body fell to the stone floor, leaving Kotetsu's horrified face covered in her innocent blood. Ben then casually stepped over her body like it was garbage, and kicked the stunned teen in the chest, sending him crashing against the display stand. As the stand broke beneath his back, Nidai Kotetsu fell right into Kotetsu's lap. Last man standing, eh? Shitty luck for you, boy. Pulling back the hammer to his pistol, Ben gave him one last cruel smile. Goodbye, Kotetsu. But Kotetsu wasn't paying attention. He was entirely shell-shocked. Everything he knew was a lie. Everyone he knew, befriended, was dead. His heart thumped once as the hammer started going down. Twice when the hammer lit the gunpowder. And for a third time when the bullet came forth from the barrel. His right hand unconsciously gripped the hilt of the cursed sword. And felt the presence of it, the soul of the sword. He felt it beg to be unleashed. To kill the ones who wiped out an entire population, to avenge the innocents who died because of them. And a part of him immediately agreed. Faster than anyone could blink, Kotetsu unsheathed the katana. The ebony blade with the red vein going through the middle of it came forth for the first time in years, and sliced the offending bullet in two. What? The Ben whispered in shock. If you want to kill me, Kotetsu's voice suddenly took a high, psychotic pitch to it. Then you motherfuckers will have to do better than that. With renewed strength and energy, the sandy-haired teen disappeared, and then reappeared at the entrance of the third wolf head in front of a large group of Marines. And the group looked on in horror as Ben and the group he went in with screamed out in agony. Their hands clutched cut-open throats. They placed their hands where their hearts and lungs were, their livers, kidneys, any vital area really. Some just fell over brain dead, while others desperately clung to life. Oh my, so many victims. And so much fun to be had. Kotetsu squealed with insane glee. And for 2 hours the crazed swordsman hunted down the invading Marines. His psychotic laughs haunted the victims as he killed them. Some were in big groups thinking that vast numbers would protect them. Well, at least they didn't die alone. Those who ran, he hunted them down like the dog they were. Some of them put up a desperate fight, which made it all the more satisfying when his blades tasted their blood. But others committed suicide, causing him to sigh in dissatisfaction at them taking the easy way out. And then there were the ships. Oh, Kotetsu loved the ships. Especially the medical bay. Just hearing the screams of the wounded put a bounce in his step when he slowly cut their throats wide open. The captain of Unit 30. Well, unfortunately he proved to be a coward and blew head off with a blunderbuss. When he approached his former captain's quarters, Kotetsu sincerely hoped that he could not be disappointed. Vice Admiral Doberman, please send reinforcements. The captain begged over his den mushi. Ensign Kotetsu, he's slaughtered all of us. Captain J is dead, our wounded are dead, my men are holding him. The captain's transmission was interrupted when 5 headless bodies burst through the thick doors to his quarters. When Kotetsu walked in, he lost control of his bladder. Kotetsu looked like someone from a horror movie. Clutched in his hands were his 2 swords that were dripping with flesh blood, and as he strolled forward the blood on his naval coat dripped onto the expensive carpet, his naval shoes leaving bloody footprints in his wake. Kotetsu's restricted pupils were twitching madly, showing no hint of sanity within him, and the wide, bloody smile caused a ball of doom to drop into his stomach. Ensign, the captain was silenced when Nidai Kotetsu sliced open his cheek. Shut your fucking mouth, Captain Weed. Kotetsu spat on the quivering captain. Stand up. The captain quickly stood to his feet. Now draw your sword, the last one disappointed me. I hope you can provide me some entertainment before you die. No, I won't do it. Kotetsu, come to your senses. Captain Weed screamed. He only got a grunt of dissatisfaction when Kotetsu lashed out with his 2 swords, cutting his legs off at the kneecaps. So much respect he had for you. Kotetsu said angrily, what a joke. Lifting his arms above his head, the swordsman buried his 2 swords into the screaming captain's lungs. Captain Weed, report. A static voice echoed from the den mushi resting on the deceased captain's hickory desk. Weed! Report now! Picking up the snail, Kotetsu pressed the button on the shell. Doberman, is that you? He hissed. On second thought, I don't care. Know this massacre just sealed your fate. Yours and Enigimo's. I'm coming for the both of you. Good luck. Blood-soaked Kotetsu. Vice Admiral Doberman calmly replied over the den mushi before hanging up. Crushing the den mushi, Kotetsu spat to the side. Now what am I supposed to do? I killed everyone already. Or did I? Unfortunately for Kotetsu, he didn't find any more Marines to kill. He looked around the entire island but didn't find anybody, no Marines, no civilians, and no samurai. Everybody was dead. He didn't know how, but he found himself inside the third wolf head once again. He didn't know why, but the sole survivor of the island collected Mifyun's sword. He felt the despair and loneliness coming from Kurosawa. It felt he was crying. He felt his insanity dampen when he heard the cries. Closing his eyes, he pulled the scabbard from Mifyun's sash and sheathed the sword to silence it. I can't leave them, he whispered to himself. Securing Kurosawa in his belt, Kotetsu picked up his deceased master's body, and then he went to AI's. It would be hours later when Kotetsu finally left the island. He stole a small ship that was tethered to one of the larger ships of Unit 30. He also stole a good amount of water and rations to survive for a few weeks. Goodbye, Iron Island, Kotetsu said as the island faded into the distance. I will never forget you. His voice went back to normal as tears fell from his eyes. And after that, I buried Master Mifune, Ai Urakaku, Taka, and Okisuke in unmarked graves in the woods. And then I stole one of their small ships and fled the Grand Line. But I was pursued the entire way. Unit 12 of the East Blue tracked me here, and the other me killed them all. That's my story, Uzumaki Naruto. Kotetsu tiredly finished up his tale. So you, or the other you took out that many Marines? Huh, well, I'm impressed actually. Naruto whistled. Don't be, killing is not something to be enjoyed. But every time I get a great amount of blood on my face. Madara come out. Madara? Naruto raised a blonde eyebrow. I named him that because he loves to spill blood. Every attack he has is meant to draw out the most amount of blood with each strike. Kotetsu lowered his head and spat to the side. Every time he comes out, I see through his eyes. I know what I have done. What are you going to do with me now, Uzumaki? If you're going to kill me, then do it quickly. Naruto's right arm reached out. He thought about complying with his request. But Queen Otoheim's words rang through his head. It was one of her speeches towards being kind to humanity. But Hodi's teachings urged him to split his head open. He was just another filthy, useless human. It was reasoning that caused him to undo the ropes binding the young man. He had some sailing experience, and he came from the Grand Line. He would show him the way home. You are of use to me, Kotetsu, Naruto said as he scooted the two swords towards him with his right foot. I need to get home. Take me there and I will make sure you have a safe haven on Fishman Island. What do you say? Pulling the two swords close to his chest like the precious treasures they were, Kotetsu looked up at the tiger shark fishman. I will do it. Captain? Your directions suck, Naruto yelled at his subordinate. Don't blame me, blame that stupid storm that blew us off course, Kotetsu protested to his captain. 5 days passed since Naruto recruited Kotetsu, a former ensign of the Marines. However, the tiger shark fisherman found himself a little wary of him due to the fact that he was an apparent psychopath. Well, not Kotetsu himself, the guy didn't really look like much. Yeah, he was pretty skilled with a sword, and he could move pretty fast with that damn devil fruit of his, but he lacked the intent to kill. No, that was Madara, the other side of his that loved to kill and soak in the blood of his enemies. The only reason he did not throw him overboard and watch him sink into the sea was because he knew how to get back to the Grand Line. Or at least he thought he did, but apparently Kotetsu sucked at navigation as much as he did. From the map the two managed to salvage from the only ship that wasn't damaged in their fight. The two were about to hit a place called Warship Island when a freak storm came out of nowhere and set them spiraling out of control, and put them in the middle of nowhere. Which left them in their current predicament of being hopelessly lost. I don't give a damn about the storm. You were supposed to navigate me back to the Grand Line. Well, sorry, if this was a bigger ship we would have been fine. But we were left with a gunboat. So shut up, Naruto growled in response. Of course he had to be reminded about that. The both of them tried to find a bigger ship to sail on, but with that fight of theirs the two bigger ones were destroyed beyond repair, and that left them a small, two-decked, two-sail, one-cannonied gunboat to make do with. While the thing was easy to sail, it was one of the most uncomfortable things he ever experienced in his entire life. The ship had no beds, no kitchen, or even a damn bathroom. Just pull out the map. Maybe it can point out any landmarks, or at least give us a clue to where the fuck we are. Naruto suppressed the urge to snap at the swordsman. Kotetsu wasn't the cause of his anger, not entirely at least. Naruto was mad that he broke his promise to Shirahoshi. He promised that he would be back in 2 weeks, and he was going to be late because Arlong destroyed his means of getting home. Yeah, 1 second. Grabbing the map out of his back pocket, Kotetsu unfolded it and set it on the deck. Placing his right hand on the bottom of it, he used his left index finger to try and trace where they were. He spotted Warship Island and remembering being knocked off course to the south, and pretty much guessing where they were sailing, his finger landed in the vicinity of. We're near the Gecko Islands. Never heard of them. I know only a little about it. My former unit docked there for supplies. It has at least 4 villages and a major restaurant that serves good food in a place called Syrup Village. So no Marines? None. Then let's go there. I doubt word has spread about you to this area yet. We can purchase some supplies there, and get you something other than that damn bloody marine jacket of yours, or those naval pants. What's wrong with my pants? Kotetsu demanded. It screams I'm in the Marines. Naruto deadpanned. A couple miles away, the twosome were spotted by a man in basic clothing and an eye patch settled in the crow's nest. A smirk came to his bearded face at seeing his prey from his visible eye. The man gripped the top of the crow's nest before leaping off, grabbing the rope attached to the mast, and rappelled all the way down to the deck. Did you see something, Scout? One of the men asked. I sure did. It's a small gunboat. Not too big of a threat, but it's on the way of the island. And you know what the captain said? Tell me if anyone is going to get in our way. The crew member finished the sentence. I know, now God and get him. But be careful, he's in a foul mood. He's always in a foul mood. I know he wasn't the best 3 years ago, but now he's just a complete dick. Tell me, why did we carry him off after his defeat? Scout asked. Fuck if I know. But just go and be done with it. Yeah. I'll get to it. Scout waved the man away and walked towards the entrance. Opening the red double doors, he was greeted with nothing but darkness. He swallowed out of reflex due to the immense killing intent emitting from the entrance. Good God, how could he forget that his captain was one of the most terrifying men he ever met? Taking a deep breath, Scout descended into the darkness of the ship. When there was absolutely no source of light, Scout moved his eye patch over to his left eye. Immediately his right eye, after being covered for several days, adjusted to the darkness so he could see quite clearly. 1. The pirate moved forward, stepping upon the wooden boards quietly as to not disturb the crew members that were to go on night shift in 5 hours' time. Once he arrived at the end of the hallway, his lone eye fixated upon the red and black doors, and his heart leapt into his throat when a cold, calculated voice spoke through the door. Enter. Nearly squealing in terror, Scout barely held his bladder together before entering the captain's quarters. He was greeted with a simple dark room with 3 windows, a oak desk with a chair to match it, a striped couch, some purple curtains, and a bed. Lounging on the bed was a slim man with round glasses and slicked black hair with a green tinge to it. He wore a standard black captain's coat with a white cat skull with 2 bones crossing behind its head symbol on the golden epaulets on his shoulders. The coat nearly covered a simple white shirt, and he was wearing a pair of black pants reaching down to his ankles, and his trademark black and white striped shoes. The man looked over to his subordinate, glaring at him with cruel black eyes. See, Captain, we spotted a ship, a gunboat. There were only 2 people, but one was a fisherman. I'm guessing they are mercenaries hired by the mayor of the island or something. The slim man sighed in annoyance, and pushed his glasses up his nose with the palm of his right hand. Wake the men, ready the cannons. We will kill these 2 before attacking the Gecko Islands tonight. Of course, Captain Kuro. All right, fine, I will get rid of my outfit. Once we hit the island, I'll get myself a new jacket and some pants, but that is all, Kotetsu said in an exasperated tone. He knew the tiger shark fisherman was right, but he was far too used to wearing his marine clothing. It was almost like being without his swords. He would feel naked without them. Trust me, this will be for the best. Naruto was interrupted by the sound of cannon fire. Both Kotetsu and himself turned and were greeted by a volley of cannon balls flying at them. Motherfucker! Shit! Get down! Kotetsu tackled Naruto to the floor of the ship. Just in time to have several cannon balls fly over them, the 2 fighters heard the balls of deadly iron clip the top of their ship, sending showers of wooden splinters on their backs. When the volley ended, Kotetsu immediately jumped off the tiger shark fisherman's back. Sorry. Just watch it. Naruto grumbled irritably. Getting tackled by a human did not really sit well with him, especially when it was unnecessary. Where the fuck did that come from? To the east. Kotetsu squinted his eyes against the sun towards the direction the volley of death came from. I can see a ship, but that. Oh shit, get down. Fuck that. You forget I'm a fisherman. Forcing 2 droplets of water into his palms, Naruto waited until the cannonballs were in his sights before he struck. Flinging his powerful arms, the blonde repeated the process of firing half a dozen water bullets into the cannonballs. The water technique hit the cannonballs with enough kinetic force to destroy them. However, he could not get to several of them in time, and the cannonballs obliterated the masts. The mast near the stern fell over the left side, destroying a section of the rails and deck as it fell into the sea. And the mast near the bow fell towards Kotetsu with the intent to crush the sandy-haired teen. However, after a week's worth of rest and healing, Kotetsu unsheathed his marine-issued saber, and sliced the mast completely in half. Damn it, there goes our sails. Any ideas, Uzumaki? The swordsman swore. Yeah, can you steer a boat? I was in the Marines, of course I can. Then I have a plan. Hey, wake up, goddammit! Scout bellowed as he pounded on the last door within the cargo hold of the ship. Nothing. Scout's patience was at an end when he heard a 3rd volley of cannon fire. Captain Kuro was very specific when he said wake everyone up. That meant everyone, even if it meant him of all people. Honestly, the eye patch wearing pirate didn't know why Django recruited the savage. He was a big lazy oaf, a waste of space, and a dairy hog. The only redeemable quality he had was that he was the best damn navigator he had seen in his life. Honestly, it was like the guy was one with nature. But it still didn't excuse him from not answering his summons when the captain demanded it. It also didn't help that he was on the thinnest ice for sleeping through the battle with the Straw Hat Pirates. Pounding on the door one more time, Scout swore that as he didn't open the door he would bust the door down and shoot him, and damn the consequences. After his last knock, the wide doors that separated the two areas opened with a loud bang. Scout was greeted with nothing but darkness that even he couldn't see through, all except a pair of glowing yellow eyes. "Yes?" a single tired voice questioned. "About damn time you woke up, Bashura. Listen, the captain told me to wake everyone up. There is a ship in the area that we're going to destroy before we attack the Gecko Islands." "Attack Gecko Islands?" Bashura asked in confusion. He even tipped his head sideways to show it. "Yeah, the island attack you slept through. The one Captain Kuro could have taken if you didn't nap." "It was too loud to nap. I didn't want to join anyways. It was on the orders of Captain Django. And then it was on the orders of Captain Kuro when he came back UAjet. I assumed you slept through it like the lazy cat you are." Scout shouted, infuriated that a member of his crew refused to follow the orders of his captain. That was the #1 rule in pirate crews: if you had a problem, you either died, left the crew, or challenged the current captain for control. "Nope. Grr, whatever. I will pretend I didn't hear that. Now come on, once we deal with these mercenaries you can rest up so we can butcher the villagers tonight." Immediately after the said that, the entire temperature of hold of the ship dropped 15 degrees. Scout sensed a great deal of rage coming from their navigator that he never felt before. The Bashura the entire crew knew was calm and easygoing, but incredibly lazy. He would spend his days down in the hold, predicting weather and informing the crew where to go when the wind changed. Not many of the crew had seen Bashura's face. In fact, the only two who had seen him face to face were Sham and Butchie, and no one could ask them what he looked like since the both of them were killed by Roronoa Zoro during their first attack on the Gecko Islands. "Whoa, hold it there. You stay back. What do you care if we butcher some lowly civilians? We're pirates, we can do anything we want." Scout took a step back out of fear. The anger coming off their navigator spiked up after he said that. "If I knew that you were going to do that the first time, I would have joined the other crew in defeating you all." Bashura hissed at the eye patch wearing pirate. "In my culture, attack on the innocents prove you have no honor. And that means the life you were is given is forfeit." "I knew you would say that." Scout's right hand went to the leather baldric that held 4 flintlock pistols strapped on his chest. "I would not do that," the yellow-eyed navigator warned his crewmate. Scout narrowed his visible eye. He gripped the butt of the pistol positioned over his chest. He pulled it out quickly and shot in the direction where their now former navigator stood. However, he didn't hear the sound of a human body hit the floor. Dropping the empty weapon on the ground, the spotter of the crew pulled out 2 more from the baldric on his chest and cocked the hammers back. "Show yourself, you yellow-belly coward. I'm giving you one last chance, stand down. Tell the captain to cease and desist, and no one will get hurt. Kiss my ass, Bashura." Scout shot 1 pistol in the direction where he heard the voice. Several heartbeats passed. This time Scout thought he got him for sure. Picking up his fallen weapon, he holstered both his empty ones and turned to walk away. He was not looking forward to telling Kuro that he killed the navigator, but given the circumstances for his betrayal it would be justifiable. "Your chance has passed." Turning on his heel, Scout pointed his flintlock pistol at the yellow eyes again. This time he was not going to miss. He pulled on the trigger of his weapon, the hammer dropped, the flint hit the frizzen, sparks flew, the flash pan lit up, and the musket ball flew from the barrel. Just as it reached its halfway mark, Bashura threw his weapon. The sharp end of a harpoon shattered the musket ball and pierced through Scout's chest. The force of the throw was so great that Scout was lifted from his feet, and he soared all the way from the cargo hold to the end of the hallway, which was no small feat since it a good 60 feet away from each other. The eye patch wearing pirate choked in surprise when his back violently hit the wall. The light in his eye dimmed as he looked upon the approaching form of his killer. "This crew has no pride, no honor," Bashura said before pulled the harpoon out of the dying man. Once he set his weapon to the side, he stretched his arms out and hummed lowly. "That is the downfall of this crew." "Are you ready?" Naruto shouted from behind the gunboat. "No. This is a stupid idea," Kotetsu hollered back while he stood at the helm, the steering wheel held firmly his hands. "No, it's an awesome idea," the blonde said before ducking under the water when another volley rang out. Checking to make sure both Kiribachi and Saiban and Kiyomumi were strapped to his back, he gripped the sides of the stern with his powerful hands, and kicking with his legs he bolted forward, pushing the entire boat in front of him. The tiger shark fisherman relied on Kotetsu to steer them away from the incoming cannonballs. Thankfully, he relied on the right person to dodge the deadly projectiles. The balls of iron hit the water with awesome force, splashing water upon the deck and the swordsman steering the boat. Kotetsu darkly spat out a mouthful of seawater. Uzumaki, I swear. Oh dear crap. Looking upon the ship up close for the first time, the swordsman looked upon the ship with wide eyes. It was a simple galleon-class ship with red and black paint. It had an unpainted cat figurehead along with the keel that looked like it was recently replaced, and a pair of black ornamental cat claws on the sides. The holes on the bottom were green, and from what he was seeing it had a maximum of 22 cannons, 11 on each side, plus an unknown amount of swivel guns. The Black Cat Pirates. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Jerking the wheel to the right, the sandy-haired teen maneuvered them behind the ship. As soon as they were in the clear, he jumped away from the helm and landed on the end of the ship. Kotetsu reached his arms into the water and gripped Naruto's shoulders to get his attention. Lifting himself out of the water, Naruto glared at his crewmate in confusion. What the hell are you doing? That's the Bez in Black. The ship of the late Captain Kuro. And that's supposed to mean something to me? Maybe not to you, but to me it means an actual ship. And an actual ship means real food and beds. So what we need to do is take this ship as undamaged as possible, Kotetsu said, the pure loathing of the gunboat evident in his voice. Oh, you're getting tired of spam and fish? Naruto said with a smirk. The food he could handle, uncomfortable living conditions he could definitely handle, but that damn gunboat? Hell no. Alright, but tell me this. If we do take this ship, how would we work it? There's 2 of us, and a fuck ton of stuff that needs to be done in order for it to sail. What was it you said earlier? You forget I'm a fisherman? Well, I'm a devil fruit user. The quick fruit allows me to move at super high speeds, so I can do all of that no problem. Maybe I can even teach you how to work a ship properly. Unless you forgot the thrashing I gave you nearly a week ago, Kotetsu said, puffing his chest out in victory. And I seem to recall knocking your ass into the sea, Naruto retorted. The wounds he received from the bipolar teen were nearly healed, but the fruity bastard claiming he won pissed him off to no end. The blonde knew he won, because he made a promise to Ace that he would never lose another fight until they had a rematch. And Uzumaki Naruto never broke a promise. Being delayed, however, did not count. Whatever you say. Listen, I can't swim, but if you can get me close enough to the boat I can jump onto it. And when I'm on, both you and I can defeat these pirates and take over the ship. What happened to that I won't kill anyone attitude? Who said I was gonna? Ugh, you humans can never make up your minds. You lost them? Kuro pushed his glasses up his nose with the palm of his right hand. Tell me, how could you lose 2 people and a simple gunboat? I am sorry, Sea Captain, but it's true. The unfortunate crew member stuttered out. Disappointing, you all disappoint me more and more every day. The captain of the Black Cat Pirates sighed. Reaching under his pillow, he pulled out a pair of black furred gloves with 5 small metal plates with holes in the middle of them at the ends of the fingers and thumbs. Placing them on his hands, he rose from his bed and slowly moved over to the trembling man. Get out of my sight. The man was all too happy to leave the presence of his captain. However, before he could fully get away, he bumped into a wall of muscle. The crew member was about to lash out, only to realize he was looking at a tattooed, muscled stomach. He looked upwards and paled. Not saying a word, he backed away and moved around the large man, and once he was clear, he bolted away. And who are you? Kuro asked the stranger irritably. My name is Bashura, the navigator of your crew. Or at least I used to be, Bashura said, his voice showing no hint of fear, something that irked Kuro greatly. A hell of a time to quit, the merciless pirate said. No matter, by the time this is all over I will have no use of a navigator anyways. Is that all you wanted to tell me? No, I'm actually here to stop you. That statement alone threw Kuro for a loop. Of course, it only lasted for a second before he began to chuckle. You're here to stop me? Oh, that is rich. I haven't laughed that hard in a very long time. Kuro of 100 plans, you should not laugh. I kept hearing that you were a fearsome leader, and an honorable man from your crew. When they lost their navigator a year ago, I happily joined up in just hoping that I could meet the man the men revered. Bashura gritted his teeth, his yellow eyes glaring at the black captain. Instead, I find a butcher of women and children, a man with no honor, no loyalty. Your unjust cruelty killed many men who eagerly awaited your return during the fight with that one crew. And if I knew that you were going to massacre an entire village, I would have joined them in defeating you. Kuro only scoffed, and pushed his glasses up his nose with the palm of his hand. I'm a pirate, and pirates owe no loyalties to anyone but themselves. He flexed his hands, and at the end of each finger and thumb a katana blade slid out of the small metal plates. The black captain smirked, looking at his recently repaired gigantic iron claws that, overall, resembled long cat claws with satisfaction. I wanted to wait a little bit, but I guess I can satisfy my bloodlust with killing you. Bashura only clenched his meaty palms together. Just like with Scout, Kuro would not stand down, nor would any other member of the crew. Then forgive me when I kill you. Before Kuro would even reply, the ex-navigator of the Black Cat pirates in front of him began to morph into something large and angry. All right, here we go. Ready, Uzumaki? Kotetsu yelled from the helm. If it'll get me away from this stupid boat, then yes. Naruto hollered from behind the boat, his hands clutching the sides with advanced eagerness. Ducking down into the sea, Naruto once again relied on his crewmate to steer while he kicked to get it moving. Once they started moving towards the ship they were planning on boarding in the most asinine ways imaginary, there was absolutely no stopping them from doing it. Kotetsu steered the ship to the right to avoid the shots from the swivel guns, jerked to the left to avoid the volley from the starboard side, and circled until they reached the stern of the ship. Tapping into the powers of his devil fruit, Kotetsu jumped from the wheel, disappeared and reappeared on the poop deck with both swords drawn and ready for battle. Ah! Shit, it's the Marines! One of the crew members screamed in fear. It was after the initial surprise Naruto made his appearance by exploding out of the water. He landed right next to the swordsman, his blue eyes glared at the black cat ear-wearing pirates, and cracked his knuckles. So, these are the Black Cat pirates? They don't look so tough. It was Kuro who made this crew fearsome. But when he was captured by the Marines they became more of a nuisance than a threat. Kotetsu informed the tiger shark fisherman. Well then, this will be easy as pie. Naruto smirked and replied before cracking his knuckles. As soon as he said that, the doors separating the deck from the rest of the ship were destroyed. And to the twosome's surprise, a very much alive Captain Kuro was fighting, of all things, a freaking 10-foot-tall black panther. The giant humanoid panther was like a walking brick shithouse. The thing looked like it weighed over 600 pounds, its muscles rippled under its midnight black fur. Claws protruded from the beast's fingertips and toes, its yellow eyes flashed angrily at the pirate captain and roared a loud cat-like howl. At first Naruto thought it was a gigantic beast that went awry, but then he noticed was dressed in rough garb. Upon the beast's torso was a black sleeveless vest that he could barely see. He was wearing red pants with a brown leather belt, and a black top hat with cat ears on the top of it of all things on his head. Both Kuro and the panther slashed at each other with their claws, both missing each other thanks to both their impressive footwork. Kuro kicked the deck and flipped himself backwards until he was 20 feet away from the 10-foot panther. His panting was the only thing that was out of place with his otherwise calm demeanor. It looks like that fool Django managed to pick up a precious jewel while I was away. Too bad it wasn't cut until it was smooth. Next time I see him I'll kill him for recruiting you. It wasn't like he had a lot of choice. Bashura growled, his voice had gained an edge and a predatory nature. Your last one died, and he asked anyone within the port I was in to join. I volunteered when I saw the insignia, foolishly thinking your crew were ones of honor. Again with this honor nonsense. Pirates don't have honor. Kuro hunched his body somewhat, causing his crew to scream out in terror. I will not have my plans foiled for a second time. Not by you, not by Straw Hat, not anyone. The black captain began to sway back and forth sideways in a fluid manner, necessary in order to enter the trance for his ultimate technique. Shit! He's going to use the shakushi? Everyone run! The crew members on the ship panicked, many of them running to try and get away, jump overboard, anything to get away from their captain. But before they could even move, Kuro simply disappeared and the screams erupted from the panicking crew. Slash marks began to appear on their bodies, some bleeding fatally, some were shallow like paper cuts. But they were eviscerated, limbs fatally cut, grievous neck wounds, and many died in the spots they were standing. Both Naruto and Kotetsu took to the rope and climbed out of the way. Both of them looked on in horror as Kuro killed the members of his crew, mercilessly cutting them into bloody ribbons. But the crew wasn't the only thing he cut into. He also damaged the ship, his claws cut into the mast. The rails of the ship were now as useful as lumber for a fire. He even nicked the steering wheel. Good God, what kind of monster would do that to his own crew? Naruto whispered in horror and rage. Of course he shouldn't have been surprised. If humans could happily kill and enslave his own people without any remorse, that why wouldn't humans do it to their own kind? That is the type of man Kuro is. Kotetsu said, his lazy-sounding voice betraying his own anger from remembering the massacre on Iron Island. He holds no regard for life. If anyone gets in the way he kills them regardless if it's his own crew, the Marines, or even women and children. He's nothing more than a monster in human skin. Kuro's ultimate technique lasted less than a minute, but the damage was completely devastating. Every man on deck was dead and dying, their crimson blood flowing into the cracks of the planks. The damage to the ship was superficial at most, nothing important was cut too deeply, and what was destroyed could be replaced in an afternoon, like the ropes for instance. But the ship now smelled of blood and death. It was sickening. Bashura was not at all amused with the carnage around him. His yellow eyes flashed in anger at the man who butchered his comrades like they were nothing but disposable pawns. Are you happy now? You didn't even lay a scratch on me. Kuro only chuckled and pushed his glasses up his nose with the palm of his right hand. Who says I didn't? Not even a second after he said that, several cuts opened along Bashura's body. Many of them were shallow, a good lot didn't bleed and would heal in a few days. The only bad ones were along his thighs. The cuts were deep that it nearly sent the 10-foot-tall panther to his knees. Sorry to cut this short, but I'm on a schedule, and with so many of my men down I need to keep it more than ever. The glasses glinted in the sunlight as the black captain hunched his body, and began to sway back and forth. We need to do something. Kotetsu clutched both his unsheathed blades in his hands, preparing to leap in to try and defend the wounded man. It was only a strong hand gripping his shoulder that prevented him from doing so. Naruto looked upon the fight, seeing that the giant cat thing was wounded, didn't necessarily mean he was out of the fight just yet. After all, if you back a wounded animal into a corner they get twice as deadly. Let's see where this fight leads. Just like before, Kuro disappeared and caused nothing but destruction for whatever got in his path. He cut into the dead bodies of his crew, destroyed the rails of the ship, he even came close to cutting both Naruto and Kotetsu on one occasion. He finally got to the back of his enemy. Kuro brought his right arm out to cut his enemy in half at the waist. Suddenly Bashura's tail shot out and caught Kuro by his waist. Despite having injured legs, he spun in circles several times until he released the black captain. His targeting was perfect. Kuro flew and hit the giant mast with a loud crack of bone and wood. The black captain choked out in surprise as he slid down to the deck, the glasses upon his face falling completely off and onto the deck. Bowing his head towards his deceased opponent, Bashura turned his back and slowly limped away from the scene of battle. He didn't notice that Kuro shakily stood upon his legs. That last blow broke something in his back. Either he slipped a disc or something, Kuro didn't know. But the bloodlust now completely overwhelmed him. The thought of a no-name navigator defeating him and ruining his plans finally drove him over the edge. Drawing into the last of his strength, Kuro launched himself as Bashura, his claws flashing in the light, his eyes burning with murderous intent. He lashed out with his left arm, and was clotheslined by a tanned, tiger-striped muscular arm. Kuro's neck bent at an awkward angle with a loud snap of bone as he fell to the bloody deck of his own ship, his expression taking on a puzzled look as the life finally left his eyes. Hearing the thump of a body hitting the deck, Bashura turned to see to his surprise a tiger-shark fishman. His stomach growled in hunger at the thought of fish, but he crushed that notion right away. He was wounded, and this stranger was fresh. Or fresher than him if the gauze on his body was any indication. He looked down at the body of Kuro and raised a furry eyebrow. Thank you? You're welcome. Catman? Naruto said, unsure of what to call the thing in front of him. Bashura chuckled in mirth. It was a good name, but completely wrong at the same time. Deactivating the powers bestowed upon him, the giant panther shrank about 2 feet, his fur, claws, ears, muzzle, and tail retracted into his body. It was then Naruto was greeted with an 8-foot-tall human with dark brown skin and yellow eyes. His entire face was devoid of hair. 4 golden looped earrings were pierced through his ears, 2 on each side, 2 rested upon his earlobes and 2 more nearing the cartilage area. His entire body was packed with hard muscle from years of heavy lifting, and his entire torso and face were covered in bizarre tattoos completely in black ink. Naruto couldn't make heads or tails of them, they were in a language he couldn't understand. Upon his chest was a circle with what looked an ancient calendar with various lines trailing across his chest to his shoulders and biceps. His stomach area had 2 thick lines going across his abs and stopping in the middle with 11 black dots of various sizes resting a few centimeters over them, and various more going down his abs until they disappeared below his wrists held various thick black lines that trailed up his forearms, while all 10 of his fingers trailing from near the fingernails to the knuckles. Hell, he even saw the same black spots on both his elbows. But it was his face that was purely terrifying, for it was covered in the same thick black lines that covered his chin, mouth, cheekbones, and even where his eyebrows were supposed to be, and even an inch above them. The dots were there too, 4 going from his forehead to the bridge of his nose, and 10 going in between the middle of the 2 lines arching upon his face. But in spite of his terrifying appearance, Bashura smiled and greeted Naruto with a low, but friendly voice. My name is Bashura. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto blinked in response to the greeting. And I'm Kotetsu. Kotetsu greeted the big man with a smile and wave. It's so good to see another friendly human being. He's not a human, the man's a war panther, Naruto said in annoyance. Dude, Sorry to burst your bubble, but he's a devil fruit user like me, Kotetsu said, all too happy to pop the fisherman's bubble. What? A few hours later, the Bezin Black was completely clear of bodies and ready to sail. Naruto figured it would not be a good idea for them to head into the island. From the Catman's information, or at least one would recognize the ship, and that would give them more problems than they needed. While it was in good shape, the ship was pretty damaged during the fight between Bashura and Kuro. The inside of the ship was a complete bloodbath. The cannon rooms had the torn bodies of various crew members that could only be picked up using a fork. Blood stained the walls of the ship along with deep claw marks that made the place look like a horror house from hell. On the positive side, however, minus it being a huge mess and needing a good bleaching, the ship was in great condition. The cannons were still fully functional, the kitchen was well stocked and completely undamaged, the munitions room was also undamaged, albeit a little depleted. And there was space. Oh, such glorious elbow room and a freaking bathroom. However, there was one thing that did not set right with Naruto at all. Are you sure you're not a war panther? He asked the giant man. Ha! Oh no, I'm not. It's as your friend said. I ate a devil fruit called the cat fruit, model Black Panther, Bashura assured the blonde with a gigantic smile. How the hell does that work? I mean, this insane bastard, he pointed at Kotetsu, who was helping them piling the bodies into the gunboat. Flashes all over the place. I could barely hit him like I did with Ace. Ace? You don't mean poor Gasti, Ace, do you? Kotetsu asked after hearing the name. Yes, he and I fought some time ago. One hell of a fight too, but he kicked my ass real good. The blonde admitted, he wasn't ashamed of it. After all, he did declare the man his rival after all, even if he was a human. I'm not surprised, he did eat a Logia-type fruit after all. Oh, what now? Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion. Are you serious? You grew up in the Grand Line. How did you not know this stuff? Kotetsu demanded. Well, sorry for growing up on Fishman Island where my species never ate some stupid fruit, Naruto retorted before tossing Kuro's glassless and gloveless body onto the gunboat with the other meat sacks. Where I come from, we swim in the ocean to survive. If you can't swim, you're as good as dead. So that's my reason for not knowing what these types of devil fruits are. Ugh, alright, since we're done tossing the bodies into the boat, allow me to teach you something that will save your life one day. Kotetsu offered to teach him about the ins and outs of devil fruits. Yeah, no thanks. I'd rather not learn something as pointless as overpowered fruit assholes, Naruto said, waving a hand dismissively. Ignoring the comment, the swordsman tried it from a different approach. I can also teach you their weaknesses. Submerge them in water, and boom, they're done, the fisherman said in a dismissive manner. That's not the only way, Bashura said, alerting the both of them. You only learn if you listen. He continued to prove his point as he poured lantern oil on the bodies, getting them ready for a nice Viking funeral. Ugh, fine. Whatever. Naruto groaned in defeat as he sat down on the deck. What harm would come of learning something new? After all, it could give him an edge over Ace in their next fight. Alright. First, let's start with the classes. Kotetsu started out. The east blew several days later. Arg. Are we there yet? Naruto asked for what seemed like the billionth time that day. We won't arrive at Loungetown for another few days, Captain, Bashura said calmly, his voice showing no evidence of any irritation from Naruto's complaining. For the last time, I am not your captain, Naruto bellowed hotly, which only caused Bashura to laugh loudly. Several days passed since the encounter with Kuro and since Bashura joined his crew. Well, he couldn't call them a crew per se, they were more of three jackasses who happened to band together under much-needed circumstances. Naruto needed to head home, Kotetsu needed asylum, and Bashura desired to travel the world, plus he was the only one who knew how to navigate through the seas. It was clear all three of them were pretty strong, and now with a navigator in their midst, the former twosome were now a threesome and a step closer to Fishman Island. 2. This would go faster if you had something to occupy yourself, Kotetsu shouted from the crow's nest. Well, excuse me for not having 2 swords to clean every single day. Leave my swords out of this. Naruto only sighed as he laid on the deck of the ship. He had already done his training for the day, he didn't need to clean anything anymore, whatever repairs would have been done, and he couldn't practice with his axe due to the fact he might accidentally destroy one of the masts. Hey Bashura, is there anything Black Cat related we need to get rid of? Not since we burned the bodies and I tore those ears off my hat. Right. Shit. How could he forget? After Kotetsu gave his boring, but very informative lecture about the devil fruits, the three of them burned the bodies of the deceased crew on the small gunboat, giving them a quickish funeral, even though that bastard Kuro didn't deserve it. Oh well, at least he kept his gloves and glasses as trophies. Afterwards, the three of them destroyed everything Black Cat related in order to make the ship seem more like theirs, minus the barrels with their logo on it. The stuff in there was vital to their survival on the sea. Bashura tore the unpainted cat head off the heel and tossed it into the ocean. Kotetsu chopped off the fingers, leaving a smooth surface by the way, while he had the honor of taking down the flag and tossing it into the sea. But after that, all the three had to do was eat some simple sandwiches and drink whatever was available, since none of them could cook worth a damn. Train in their respective skills for as much as they could, and then sleep on comfortable beds, after taking shifts to make sure they weren't attacked. That was a week ago, and now Naruto was bored. Man, what would he have to do to get some excitement around here? Hey Uzumaki, I see something! Kotetsu called from above them. Oh, thank God! Naruto leaped to his feet, and began to climb up the rope going towards the crow's nest. What is it? Pirates? Marines? A sea king? He could honestly care less who or what it was, as long as he got to do something to fight his boredom. Actually, it's a boat. Kotetsu's sweat dropped when the blonde hopped into the crow's nest. A boat? Lifeboat, actually. Here, look. Taking the telescope handed to him, Naruto peered through the glass and saw a simple lifeboat with a man collapsed in it. He furrowed his brows, deciding whether to help or leave him. His gut was telling him to leave the man's ass out to dry, but the brain told him to go do it. Of course, Hodi's teachings told him that one less human in the world was a good thing, but then Otoheim's teaching and gentleness begged him to help a person in need. Damn it all to hell. What direction is he in? To the east. Hey Bashura, turn to the east. Aye, Captain. Don't call me that. After Bashura turned the ship to the east and got close enough to lay anchor, Naruto was the one who jumped overboard and pulled the lifeboat towards their ship. After latching two boarding hooks in the iron loops, he hollered at the two to pull it on up. Once both Bashura and Kotetsu pulled the lifeboat up to the side of the ship, they pulled the unconscious man out before dropping the lifeboat into the water again. All right, who is this guy? Naruto questioned them. I dunno. Bashura placed his fingers on the man's neck. He's still alive, dehydrated, exhausted. He heard the man's stomach growl angrily. And hungry. Yeah, I get that. What about you? Hearing no response, Naruto looked to see Kotetsu's wide eyes. Kotetsu? Holy crap! Don't you know who this guy is? Kotetsu demanded. Looking down at the unconscious man, Naruto saw that he was relatively thin, more than likely stood at an average height with tan skin, short, scruffy black hair, a scruffy beard, and a slight mustache. He had dark circles under his eyes, almost like he lacked sleep. He had both his ears pierced with two red spherical earrings on each ear, wore a blood-stained green t-shirt that exposed several stitched scars on his arms, ratty gray pants, and worn brown boots. Weapon-wise, he had one flintlock pistol, a double-barreled shotgun, and a pair of tonfa tipped with heavy iron balls that were the same size as cannonballs. Should I? Naruto asked. That's Jin the Demon Man, an infamous member of the Krieg Pirates worth 10 million belly. The sandy-haired teen said. How do you know all this crap? The tiger shark fishman demanded. Being a marine has its advantages. Bashura picked the unconscious man up easily in his arms, and was quite alarmed at how light he was. Now's not the time to dilly-dally, this man is in dire need of medical care. He heard another loud growling noise coming from the man's stomach. And for the love of Yojo, get this man a sandwich. It would take a day before Jin awoke from his slumber. Immediately he wished he didn't. Both his arms were screaming at him for rowing for untold amount of days. His head ached like crazy, his stomach was growing like an angry animal. God, everything was pain. Ah, I see you're awake. Snapping his head towards the voice, Jin was surprised to see a tiger shark fishman looking square at him. Hey, Bashura, he's awake. Bashura? What's oh my god! Jin mentally screamed in surprise, seeing a big savage-looking man walk into his room. Ah, at least you aren't dead. Bashura settled onto the stool he placed next to Jin's bed. His entire weight caused the wood to creak loudly. The Zoan Devil Fruit user placed his big meaty right hand upon Jin's forehead, and nodded in satisfaction. No fever, good. He then picked up a glass of water he placed on the nightstand next to him. Drink. Jin drank from the glass, not completely by choice since the big man was practically forcing the water down his throat. But soon he managed to get the entire thing down his throat and into his stomach. Ack warm? Yeah, we thought you would wake up sooner, Naruto said with a shrug of his broad shoulders. Now tell us, what the hell were you doing out in the sea? Running, and planning to die. Jin answered them truthfully, much to their surprise. Say what now? Naruto dumbly asked. I should have been dead weeks ago. Krieg's MH5 poison gas always proves fatal, and I'm no exception. Jin coughed violently, hard enough that spittles of blood landed upon Bashura's vest. Many have died in minutes, the unlucky ones hours. How I survived for this long is beyond me. Hold on a second. Kotetsu! Naruto shouted from the top of his lungs. A few seconds afterwards the ex-marine appeared next to the bedside, surprising the weakened Jin by some degree. You called Captain? Kotetsu smirked, which caused Bashura to chuckle in amusement. For the last time, I'm not your captain. Naruto sighed in annoyance. While it was good to be called the captain of this crew, he guessed, he honestly wished it was a bunch of fishmen that called him that instead of humans. Ugh, anyways. You're the guy who knows about pirates. This guy sprouted out the name Krieg and something called MH5. Can you explain who or what they are? Yesterday I said he was a member of his crew. Kotetsu palmed his forehead at the fishman's absent-mindedness. Don Krieg, or better known as Foul Play Krieg, is a ruthless pirate whose main talent is skullduggery, and commands an armada of pirate ships. From what I remember, he has nearly an unlimited amount of weapons on his person, and has a bounty of 17 million belly on his head. Your information is a little old there. Jin coughed out in pain. Krieg does not have that armada of his anymore. It was all destroyed by Hawkeye's Mihawk when we entered the Grand Line. All 50 ships and 5,000 men gone in barely 10 minutes. Many of the survivors starved to death when we tried to retreat from that monster. The weakened man stopped for a few minutes to steady himself. I was captured by the Marines, disguised as Krieg. When Jin started hacking again, Bashura left his stool and brought back another glass of water, this time a cold one with ice cubes and a straw. Come on, drink, spit in the empty one. Jin did as instructed, drinking from the glass and spitting the pinkish water out into the empty one. He lay back again before repeating the process several times before he could drink again without the coppery taste of blood in his mouth. Ah, thank you. You have no idea how much I needed that. You can thank us by telling us the rest of your tale. Come on, Jin, we're not the bad guys here. Kotetsu said, being rather patient with all this. I won't bore you with the small details. But I escaped from my capture, was provided a meal from a chef named Sanji at the Baratai, and left. A few days later I brought Don Krieg and the rest of my crew to the Baratai. He noticed their looks of disbelief and explained his actions. They were starving. Do any of you know the pain of starving to death? He trailed off, his face tight with pain from the experience. It was pure hell, a torture beyond belief. Yeah. I kinda know what that was like. Surprisingly, it was Naruto who knew what Jin went through. The years of residing in the Fishman district taxed his young body to the breaking point. Whether it was starving, sickness, or fighting in the pits, it nearly broke him. Hell, it could have broken him if not for Jinbe's timely arrival. Then you know why I brought them. I could not have them die like dogs. They fed us out of pity, but it was enough for use to regain our strength. I was hoping we would just leave, but then Krieg. He had us attack them in order to take their ship. A fight ensued. My hawk arrived and left. I took the head chef hostage and was ordered to execute him and the other chef who saved me life. Jin laid back, an expression of pain and shame etched upon his face. I just couldn't do it, and that was when Krieg unleashed his MH5 gas on everyone. It was out of fear from the man that I threw my gas mask away. You did what? Bashura exclaimed loudly. I threw it away. At that time I feared him more than I death. But the chefs? Well, they did their best to heal me with various antidotes for poison. It may have been the only thing keeping me alive until now. I lost consciousness for a time, but awoke just long enough to see that Straw Hat Kid defeat Krieg. He coughed violently again, but thankfully no blood came up this time. Afterwards, I realized that Krieg was not the strongest, and since he pretty much disowned me from the crew, I decided to start anew after I dropped them off on a sparsely populated island. So let me get this straight. You followed a complete psychopath because you feared him, but after he was beaten by this Straw Hat Kid, you had some sort of revelation and left the crew after you set them on a random island. Naruto relayed the information said to him in simpler terms. Pretty much. That has to be one of the dumbest things I ever heard in my life. Naruto thought to himself. It doesn't matter any longer. I doubt I'll last another week in my condition, Jin said as he rested his head on the pillow, his already waning strength draining down to nothing. I doubt it will come to that, just rest, you're among friends here, Bashura said, his voice surprisingly sincere. What was he planning? Wait a second. Kotetsu, if you're up here, who is keeping a lookout? Naruto asked. They were all answered when the ship was rocketed by the sound of cannon fire, and the sound of wood snapping like twigs caused Naruto to scream out in anger. Damn it! Bashura, Kotetsu topside. Ready yourselves if we're going to get boarded. Got it. Kotetsu disappeared from sight using his devil fruit power, and left a mirage in his wake that faded after a few seconds. Aye. Bashura bounded out of the room, his face set in grim determination. And you? Just stay put. Naruto barely spared a glance at Jin before heading up to the deck. Once the three got upon the deck, they were floored seeing a freaking man-of-war-class battleship anchored next to them. The thing was 200 feet long with 3 mighty masts, and what looked like over 124 guns. But most of all it had the marine insignia on the sails. Damn it, Kotetsu, you're becoming more trouble than you're worth. Naruto muttered to the swordsman. Those are not the marines. Look at the flag. Kotetsu pointed out the obvious. Squinting his blue eyes, the fisherman saw that it was a black flag that had the standard Jolly Roger with sideburns on its cheekbones, and 2 hourglasses to the sides. Ah shit, pirates. Who are they this time? The Krieg pirates. Are you shitting me? I don't think he is captain, Bashura said. This is unbelievable. Not even a day ago we find a former member of their crew half dead in the ocean, and now this. God, why do I attract these sorts of people? Instead of getting an answer from the 2 strays he picked up, it was Don Krieg who barked at him from a loudspeaker on his ship. You 3 on the ship. Surrender and prepare to be boarded. Is he serious? Naruto's sweat dropped. Apparently. Bashura answered with a deadpan expression. You have until the count of 10. 1. 2. Krieg never even got to the count of 3. The threesome came at them with a running start, leaped the full distance that separated their ships, and landed with their weapons in hand. Naruto decided to forego his anchor axe by leaving it on the bow of the ship, and Arlong's kiribachi was hanging upon the wall of the room he called for himself. Instead he relied on his fists since it had been far too long since he fought with only them. Meeting the first member of he punched him directly in the face for an instant knockout. Twirling on his heel he lashed out with a powerful kick that struck 3 members in the chest and sent them flying backwards. Several men came up, swords flashing in the light rays to slice into him. Naruto only gave them his infamous shark-like smirk that would haunt them for months. He gabbed 2 men by their wrists, his iron grip causing them to cry out in pain and drop their swords. The blonde fishman then lifted them easily over his head and spun on his heels, causing him to look like a mini tornado, and used the 2 unfortunate men to slam into their comrades with violent force. Naruto spun like this for barely a minute before letting the men in his grip go, and by go I mean they flew face first into the wooden walls of the ship. Oh come on people, at least give me a challenge. Naruto demanded at the 30 fearful men surrounding him, and the moaning 20 men laying at his feet. With Kotetsu he was also wrapping up his minor skirmish. His blades flashed with non-lethal force, the flat of his blades hitting the forearms of the crew, knocking them out with powerful kicks, and jumping and fooling them into slashing his afterimages. Damn it, this bastard's fast. Hustle, the combat instructor of the Krieg pirates yelled. And he's just toying with us too. Kajiko, the locksmith of the crew growled in anger. Well, he won't beat the 20 of us when we gang up on him. Idea man, the staff officer of planning shouted when he raised his flintlock pistol to shoot the sandy-haired teen. Fuck yeah! The 20 men surrounding him bellowed. Following Idea man's plan, they all pulled out some sort of firearm, and settled them upon Kotetsu's form. Humph, Mirage sword style, Moon's gentle touch. Drawing upon his devil fruit's powers, Kotetsu disappeared and the sound of steel cutting into flesh resounded throughout the deck of the ship. Reappearing 10 feet away, Kotetsu sheathed both his swords and the men fell to the ground stiff as boards. Wah, what the hell? Hustle moved his muscular right arm to try and get up, only to scream as a cut in his bicep opened up. I wouldn't move too much. I didn't cut you guys too deep, but they were deep enough to the point that if you try to move, let alone attack me, they will open. What? Idea man grunted out in pain. In idiot's terms, my attack is non-fatal and can easily be healed. But that will change if you move at all, and if you're too stupid to understand that, let me make it clear. You move, you die. It's as simple as that. Kotetsu stood over them with a triumphant grin. Nobody died, and that was a victory for him. For Bashura, who was equipped with a larger-than-normal tomahawk that was clutched firmly in his right hand, instead of his trusty harpoon. The weapon itself didn't look all that special. The wood was 4 feet in length with tribal markings running along the enlarged, upper portion of it, and had simple large steel axe head that shined in the sunlight. The Zoan devil fruit user twirled it in his hand with great expertise, as he looked at his 2 opponents. The first was a towering man, wearing a yellow shirt and purple shorts that went to his knees. 1 large iron plate covered his backside, as well as 2 small plates with large pearls embedded in them that rested upon his knees, elbows and hands. Hell, he even had pearls on his shoes and his freaking head. The man laughed in an obnoxious surfer accent that ruined his otherwise handsome face. Oh dude, Captain, we got ourselves some strong ones. Don Krieg only looked upon the 3 fighters defeating his crew with disdain in his cruel black eyes. He was a tall, muscular man, with short cut gray hair and long sideburns. After his fight with Luffy, he lost a good majority of his armor and weapons. His signature golden wood steel armor was missing his chest plate, shoulder guards, and his porcupine cape. All he had left weapon-wise was a simple flintlock pistol, his diamond-embedded gauntlets hidden by his black fur-lined gloves, a wrist-mounted flamethrower on his left gauntlet, and an iron net-mounted launcher on his right one. All he had left attire-wise was a brown shirt, light purple pants, a brown belt, and his black shoes. Kill them, Pearl. He ordered the invincible iron wall of his crew. All of you get up. None of you are allowed to fall unconscious until you do so. Krieg's demanding voice caused an immense amount of fear within his crew. It was just like Jin said, they feared Krieg more than they feared death itself. So, despite their bodies' protests, they stood up on their own 2 feet. Blood from the wounds Kotetsu inflicted upon them opened up and ran down their bodies like a river. The ones Naruto downed with his powerful fists rose to their feet despite any broken bones or concussions they had. The fuck? He wasn't kidding when he said Krieg ruled his crew through fear. Naruto said, completely disgusted at the method one would go to ensure loyalty to his crew. Well, duh. He may be a pirate, but he sure isn't a liar, Kotetsu remarked. He gripped his swords tight in his hands to prevent them from shaking. It seemed the only way to end this was to kill them all. Disgusting, I can smell the wickedness coming from his body. Bashura holstered his tomahawk onto his belt. He flexed his fingers, preparing to draw upon his devil fruit powers to transform him into his humanoid panther form. Don Krieg only smirked. Get them, boys. Stand down. A familiar voice to the crew caused them to halt their actions. Turning their head towards the right where the galleon-class ship was hooked, their eyes widened in surprise. Some thought they were seeing a ghost. It was Jin, their former combat commander of the crew, standing under his own power with his signature tonfa with iron balls on the ends clutched in his hands. The black-haired man was sweating up a storm, and panting heavily, but still alive. Jin! Krieg bellowed in hot rage. How dare you show your face around me? Not my intention, Captain. Jin spat out his title like it was poison. I was free from you, free from your fear. But it looks like fate had other ideas in mind. He coughed violently, hacking up globs of blood that stained his already ruined shirt. I guess I couldn't die before I dealt with you once and for all. Ha! You deal with me? Oh Jin, you are still nothing more than the punk I picked up from all those years ago. Reaching behind his back, Krieg pulled out his simple flintlock pistol from the holster on his belt, cocked the hammer back and aimed it at his former crewmate. You're nothing more than a dog that followed me blindly for years. And like a bad dog you must be put down for your disobedience. Men attack. I said stand down. Jin roared at the top of his lungs, a roar that was so loud that nearly the entire crew fell unconscious with foam welling up in their mouths. It wasn't necessarily what he had planned, but it had to do. The former member of the Krieg pirates used the last of his depleting strength to bolt forward. Spinning the tonfa in his right hand at high speeds, he swung, and hit a wobbly Don Krieg square in the face. The blow made the pirate let out a painful squeak as the iron ball cracked his skull, and was flung to the ground with such violent force that it cracked the deck. Panting in exhaustion and pain, Jin looked at a completely terrified Pearl. Despite the blood falling from the corners of his lips, he spoke his final orders to the remaining members of his crew. The Krieg pirates are finished, Pearl. When they wake up, head for a populated island, I do not care which. When you're halfway there, sink this ship and give up being a pirate. This is not a request, this is an order. And if you do not fulfill this order, I will drag myself out of hell and make you suffer. You understand me, Pearl? 3. Yeah of CR stewed. Pearl barely managed to stutter out before he too fell unconscious. Wow, that was awesome! Naruto exclaimed in respect. And could you blame him? All Jin did was yell, and boom, nearly 70 men were knocked out. Haki? Kotetsu narrowed his eyes in suspicion at the coughing man. First Kuro, then Krieg, and now this guy. The Marines' info have been way off for these guys, even if I have been on the run for a few months. He then looked at the unmoving form of Don Krieg and bent down to see if he was even alive. To his surprise, foul play, Krieg was still alive. Hey, Krieg's still alive! Are you kidding me? Naruto walked over to the defeated man and gave him a swift kick in the ribs. Krieg groaned in pain soon afterwards. Well, son of a bitch, this asshole is more sturdier than I thought. Want me to finish the job? No, don't kill him. Jin coughed several times, this time needing Bashura to support his weight. I want him to pay for what he's done, and the only way I can think of having him suffer the greatest indignity of defeat is handing him over to the Marines. Then it looks like Loungetown is the was to go. Bashura grinned a disturbingly cat-like grin. And more trouble it looks like. Naruto thought to himself. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the next part, don't forget to turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Please like, subscribe, and comment below to let me know your thoughts. Check out my other videos for more content you might enjoy. Until next time, take care.